Well, hello to all of you 242 subscribers on YouTube and the others who are on Spotify or Apple. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. Your support means so much to me. And the fact that you guys have been really helpful in promoting my videos or also just giving me feedback is really appreciated. And just please, if something really spoke to you or you found a video to be pretty cool, or if you think I'm doing a terrible job, let me know. I want to get better, and I want to make sure that you, the listener or watcher or whatever, however you're doing this, appreciates and enjoys the content. So without further ado, we're getting into this episode with John Bush. So John is a pretty interesting guy. He leads a pretty interesting life to me. He traveled for work all over the world. So we talk about his favorite places to get steak. We talk about his favorite places that he's traveled to. Talked about cars in this episode, a little bit of politics too. And what his favorite cars are, what kind of cars he owns, the cars I got to ride in, things I got to start up with him. I found it to be so enjoyable. I felt like a little kid in a candy shop just looking at all of his cars. And if you guys want to see what kind of cars that he has or he plays with, you're more than welcome to go follow him on his Maximum Overdrive TikTok and also Instagram. He posts almost daily videos and pictures of what he's doing throughout the day. And I find it to be pretty interesting too. Let's get into today's episode. I really do appreciate you guys supporting me, and it has been so much fun making content for you guys. Enjoy the video. And we're good to go. All right. Hey, John, thank you so much for coming out today. I am so happy to be able to sit down and have a conversation with you again.
Finally. Well, hey, first of all, thanks again for having me out today.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you coming out the other week and having some good eats with us, man. That was a hell of a time
That
going out and
was
having some
really
good food.
That was really good, dude. The food was amazing. That home cooked pizza that your mother-in-law made was awesome.
Oh man, she is a fantastic cook. Number one, and number two. I mean, when we eat, I mean, there's normally a pretty good spread. I don't like to eat. I mean, even though if we're eating Italian, I want a little bit of a mix, not just Italian. Like bring in a little something else. So
You brought some Americanized food.
got to bring in a little bit of everything. You know, if you're gonna eat Japanese, why not mix a little Chinese in there? Hey, a little Brazilian for that matter. So
Well, you're somebody who's even toured around the world with what you used to do for a full-time job.
yeah.
So you've gotten to experience so many different types of cultures and meals and types of experiences and personalities. I'm sure that that's really been something that's been beneficial in your life, especially with what your content you make now.
Well, I mean, let's be real. First of all, people love to eat. Who doesn't love to eat? Unless you got something wrong with you, you know you like to eat, right? So anyone you want to eat good food. Let's be
Yes.
real. And everybody's got their own ideology of what good food is. Now, if you grew up here in the States, you've been Americanized, which means that if you really think you know what Chinese food is, it ain't from the walk down the street. Trust me. It's really from China, and it's really different. Same with Japanese, et cetera, et cetera. But, I mean, at the end of the day, food is really what brings people together. I mean, it humanizes people, and we get to sit down and break bread and have a meal together. And that's actually one of the most important things you can do in business. You're meeting a customer, you want to get to know your customer, you want to sit down and talk with them. That's the perfect time to do it because it turns you into, I'm just trying to sell you something versus, okay, I'm actually a human. I'd like to know about your family. You get into those type of conversations. So, yeah, getting to see all the different food cultures. There's, I'd say obviously you'll have your favorites, just like any person would. And you have things you probably don't like as much. But being able to kind of mix those up or be like, oh yeah, man, some Brazilian, steak sounds really good with some Japanese sushi, or some pad thai with some bratwurst for that matter. And it may sound weird, but hey, it's like
It was really good.
If you got to experience it, yeah, 100%.
Yeah, 'cause
So
I think what we did, what you guys all cooked up was home cooked pizza.
yeah,
And then bratwurst.
Yep.
And some type of a salad. And what else was there?
Definitely Americanized
the
salad.
peppers, the stuffed peppers.
the stuffed peppers, dude.
Everything was good,
Bro, I'll tell you what.
It was awesome.
She found those stuffed peppers online, and she's been making them, but she's been refining the recipe. Man, they're so fantastic. Just those big, big red peppers with stuff like meat and a little bit of cheese and rice and stuff in there. Man, they're dense, they're filling.
Yes,
it's like
it definitely was.
If you walked out of there hungry, it was your own fault, bro. That's all I can say.
I was not hungry for the entire night. I wasn't even hungry. And what I normally do is I eat dinner and then about 20, 30 minutes later, I'm always hungry again.
Yeah.
And then I come home and then I eat some a little bit more. And then I'm like, why am I got this belly? Like, I don't understand it.
Haven't you ever thought that? Haven't you ever thought that's funny though? Is that you could eat the biggest dinner in the world, right? And I mean, like, just you're just packed. You're just, oh, give me the wheelchair and roll my ass out of here. But there's always that little side pocket. It's like the cow's fifth udder or something. A room for dessert. I don't care whatever your favorite dessert is. You can still manage a way to fit it down in there somewhere and just be like, yeah, now I'm really full, baby.
I can always fit in some more chocolate.
Yeah.
I can always fit in more chocolate. I can always fit in like ice cream is one of my biggest things. I can always do it no matter what I eat. So you talked about Brazilian, like some steak. Have you had steak from multiple different countries?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so where's your most favorite steak prepared?
So without hesitancy, I would say Brazil. Brazil has a cut of steak down there. It's called picanha, and
That's good.
oh, it's without a doubt.
good.
People say, oh, the A6 Wagyu, the A5 Wagyu, and bro, I'm being legit here. That picanha cooked properly on a spit, just rotating around, I'm salivating right now just thinking about it. And I just ate, bro, and I could probably eat a half pound of the steak right now. But my personal opinion is the best cut in the world. Now, people argue, say ribeye or filet or whatever. It's all personal. It's all subjective. It's whatever you like. I love that picanha. And, you can get yourself good picanha just to go on a Fogo de Chão. Now, it's expensive down there. But you can also, if you're going to go down there, you're going to fill up the right, left, and third leg before you walk out that place, right? So you're going to eat all you can. And they actually have an unknown or unheard of menu. There are actually several things that you can get from there that they don't even put on the menu.
Really?
Yeah, it was like feijoada and stuff like that. So feijoada is was considered like a poor man's food down there. Or I think there used to be some type of slave workery or something down there where they would cut up all these animals and throw them into like a big vat almost, and then they put some rice, and then they put all this meat all over the top. But it ends up today, it's like a delicacy. Like, it's fantastic.
Really?
You wouldn't know there was like tongue and stuff in there. Who cares? This is the problem. Like, Americanized. When I say Americanized, like, I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, the organs are bad. It's like low class or something like that. And actually, that's where all the protein and good stuff is for you. And we've been taught and brainwashed in this country that, well, we really shouldn't eat that. The smart ones, the people in the hills who know that this is where the good stuff is. You should be eating this. And we're sitting here going, no, it's got to be a cut of steak with no fat on it. It's like, no, that's like, you need to be eating this.
You need to have fat in it.
You need to have some fat in it, and you really should have organs. That's where, like I said, all the good vitamins, minerals, and stuff like that is. And it's whether you can get past it if you've been born and raised. And it took me a long time to really get past that. Oh my gosh, I'm eating heart. Oh my gosh, I'm eating tripe. Or oh my gosh, I'm eating eyeballs or assholes for that matter. Because I've eaten chicken assholes, and I know it sounds weird, but in China there's a restaurant where they serve chicken assholes and a lot more than that, and then all kinds of different penises of animals around the world.
Really?
Yeah, and the reason for it is it's believed, similar to the women over there, they believe that if they eat the eyes or the skin of something, this is like some traditional Chinese medicine. I'm not saying I'm a Chinese medicinal herbalist or anything, but I was married to a Taiwanese woman for 6 years. That if I eat the skin of something else, my skin will become more beautiful. And if I eat the penises of all these other animals, my penis will become more beautiful. Or longer, or bigger, or fatter, however you would think that effect is. Yeah, so, I mean, I'll try anything once. That's always been my resume. I don't care how nasty it looks, how sick it looks. Try it once, and if it tastes terrible, I can at least say I tried it.
See, like the people around here, whenever I'll chat with somebody about the food that I've eaten. I've only toured like Mexico. Really, that's about it. Yeah. And in Mexico, they'll do something similar. Not like what I'm talking about is like eating skin and it'll make your skin nice.
Yep.
But like they cook everything.
Oh, sure.
And then so like I've had dog down there, which was very different. I didn't notice it. I thought it tasted delicious. And then I've had like beef tongue and stuff like that.
Fantastic.
And then, like, I've had like some part of brain, whatever, and I didn't notice it. And there was a very little bit amount of it in it. And then heart was another one that was different for me.
I love the heart.
But then a buddy of mine who's a hunter brought in a deer heart, and he's like, it's super lean. He goes, he didn't prepare it right. He's like, so it's really tough to eat. He's like, but it's really good for you. So
at the end of the day, too, it's about preparation, So if you're gonna eat organs and stuff like that, and this is your first time ever, have somebody who knows how to prepare it, because truthfully, if You know, one of the things I can say honestly and openly I don't like is I don't like tripe. I don't like cow stomach. I don't care
Is
how
that what that is? Tripe?
Yeah, yeah, it's tripe, cow stomach, and basically, to me, it's just like I don't know. You remember those things you put on your finger to go through paper, like you know, it's like this
Oh,
rubber
yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
It tastes like I don't know. It reminds me of the texture of that, like just this rubbery, like it has no taste, bland as a popcorn fart, you know. And it's just not. It's not something I liked. And trust me, I've had it in Taiwan. I've had it all in Asia, and they put it in so many different things. Like, oh, it'll taste great this way. I'm like. Motherfucker, I don't care what you tell me. This shit tastes like shit. It ain't for me. I don't want it. I'm cool with you eating it, but it gives me no pleasure. Like if I'm gonna eat something, and eating isn't just for pleasure, of course, but you know, if I want to eat something, I kind of want it to taste good or have some effect. I just feel like there's no effect to that whatsoever. I'm probably being biased just because I just don't really like to. I feel like I'm chewing on something for like 10 minutes, you know. So, but I have utmost respect for all the different cultures of food because again, that brings people together. It's always cool. So like what. My background as example, I'm German and English. Now, even though I'm not a huge fan of German food, let's say I was for a second, one of the things I'd like to show you is, hey, come over to my house. I'm going to hook you up with a whole German meal. I mean, that's a way to unite with somebody right there versus, you know, separate. So I think, and if you were like Polish as an example, you'd be like, hey, man, come over. You got to try some of these pierogies or whatever. And I'd be like, hell yeah, put some blueberries in this one, put some meat in that one, some potatoes in that one. We got dinner, baby. You know, we got all three in one. Let's go.
Well, everything with food is always awesome, and that's what the blessing is of working at a firehouse is because guys are coming in from different backgrounds. Now, granted, most of them are from around here.
Yep.
Like when I say here is Indiana, like the touching states, and then so they're still bringing in something from their household.
Sure.
So like there's some guys that are like one of my buddies is really good at cooking for some reason chicken pot pie. He's really good at cooking chicken pot pie. But every time we made it. We made it like five shifts in a row because it was that good. And we also had other reasons why we were making it too. But every time he made it, we always did a little different variation to it. And we ended up for the topping, and we tried it for the bottom. It didn't really work. But we used the Cheddar Bay Red Lobster biscuits mix, and we put that as the topper. Dude, it was fire.
I was going to say that. That sounds
so good. Like it was delicious. And then at the end of it, you took that little butter glazing on it and all that stuff with the seasonings in it. And it was just delicious. Like you had the biscuits on top, and then you had the rest of the chicken pot pie on that. But dude, so when you talk about your business, the business that you used to work for, what was that company? Are you allowed to talk about it, or was there an NDA signed?
Oh no, I can talk about it 100%. So I mean, the company was in telecommunications. Okay, I won't go through all the names and stuff, just so I don't want all people going out and Googling all this shit. But the long story short is it was in telecommunications, which was basically think of radio free. So you're a fireman, right?
Yeah.
So radio frequency over coax, as an example. So that's just one of the many things we did. But you know, when you're rolling down the street in your fire truck and you cue up your mic and you want to talk back to base, right? It basically goes out and goes over radio waves, and these radio waves are locked on at different frequencies. So in other words, you may transmit back at 115.5 or whatever your transmission frequency, and that's what they're listening and waiting for you to transmit back, and then they transmit back to you on the same frequency. Same with airplanes flying in. As they come in to land, they're transmitting on a specific frequency, and ground is waiting to listen to them on a specific frequency. So what we did, and what my whole career has really been throughout my entire life, starting off obviously learning. I can take you through that whole thing if you like, but what it basically is radio frequency theory fundamentals and selling equipment that tests RF over coax to make sure like your internet's fast, that you're not losing packets of data that are just falling off. How is that happening? Why is it happening? Has your dog chewed on the coax? Is it opened up, leaking into the air, or is there some other issues going on? So we made all types of test equipment that would test all kinds of things. There's just so many different ways of testing on coax. So we would make this equipment, and then we would go out and fight our competition, and steal their business. Basically, is always how I thought about it. We would take their business. We would of course then sell to those customers, and then most importantly retain those customers and sell to them over a longer period of time. Try and get them to buy more, just like you would with anything else. So it was an eye-opening experience because I got to see, I'll say, lots and lots of salesmen with their different techniques before I even started selling. Before I even tried to understand what selling was, I learned the technical first, the technical background of it first. Actually, if you want me to back up, I started off helping build the building. Long story short. So I was janitorial. I was cleaning toilets. Yeah, I was going to college. I was actually going to college for web development. I Thank you, Lord Jesus, for not letting me finish that, because I would have been a terrible web designer. Whatever I would have worked on, guaranteed wouldn't have worked for you guys. So thank God that didn't happen. So yeah, I started cleaning and building a building. I was doing roofing when I was like 18 to probably 20, something like that, right in that range. And then they needed somebody to push the cart and help build the building. I'm like, hey, cool, 150,000 square foot building. From there, about a year and a half, roughly 2 years into doing the janitorial, I went into what's called a junior applications engineering. Probably the lowest end spot you could be on any list, but it was basically supporting the customers when you'd have a problem with the product. They'd call in and say, hey man, this ain't working or that ain't working. And I didn't know anything about any of that stuff. All I knew was like how networks run, because I was a video gaming nerd. So I had to set up my own network at homes, and I did that a lot. So they would call in, and I'm trying to figure out what this radio over coax stuff is. I got BER problems, I got MER problems. And, when you hear this stuff for the first time, it's like they're speaking Cantonese. I mean, I have no clue what this stuff even means. But there was a lot of good people around you that were patient, 20, 30, 40 years of experience with this and knew the stuff and would teach you and wouldn't condescend. And that's what I'd say is makes one of the best teachers in the world. If you're a teacher out there, one of the most important things you can ever do when you're teaching to your students, do not condescend or do not give off that energy. Make it always open and approachable. Otherwise, the person who's trying to learn doesn't feel open and comfortable learning from you. And as a teacher, your job is to teach and make sure, most importantly, they retain what you teach. So
when you talked about using coax cables, did you have any changes of mind when fiber optic came into the game?
Oh, no. In fact, for many years, everybody has known. If you're in the and that's a great question. If you're in that business, telecommunications, everything's going fiber optics. Glass is faster than copper. I mean, it just is, and the whole world is going that path. The problem is, if you think about it, go back to 50s, whatever, 60s. They have put so much copper in the ground, so much coax. It's everywhere. I mean, across the world is everywhere. Now, what's funny, if you compare the United States to Europe, it's a great example. The United States, we do a lot of aerial. So when you drive down the road, you see, the poles with the wires and stuff. In Europe, it's almost all underground. Almost all of it's been built underground. Which one's harder to work on, do you think?
Underground.
Oh yeah, because once it's in there, now you're gonna have to dig and this and that, or something, you're crawling a sewer. Versus, hey, a tornado, which did just come through not too long ago, blew down some poles and stuff. I'm not saying those poles are easier to get up. It's just a different form of work, and typically if it is in the air, it's a little bit easier to deal with. So yeah, I mean, it's just. And then, of course, now you get into today's age. I'd say probably in really 2010 was very realistic when everything started floating down the path of fiber optics, because it's significantly faster. And they've got technologies they've been putting into coax, into radio frequency waves, that will make them as fast as glass. But as glass continues to develop and go further, glass only get faster and faster. So that's
what's the next thing after fiber optic, you think?
Well, so fiber optic and 5G are kind of tied at the hip, if you will. So, I mean, you're talking about, think of a spider web. You know how a spider web has all those little points of, where one's intersect with the other. Every time there's a point of contact, think of that as another transmitter, another antenna, if you will. So 5G is basically glass, but it is, but it isn't. It's hard to explain, but 5G is what's coming down the pipe, and it's already here in some states. And it's not, I won't say it's not blown up yet, but they're still doing a lot of testing on it. And this is for stuff like when you talk about latency. I mean, you've probably done some video gaming in your time as well. Well, when you talk about latency, latency is the time that when I click the mouse button on Modern Warfare to take that shot at that guy, how quickly does it actually happen in the game, right? Well, imagine this, God forsake.
You want that number as low as possible.
Exactly. Yeah, it's called a lot of gamers call it your ping, your latency, your ping. Right? Exactly. So what happens is that you get this number down as low as possible. Well, for military application or for medical application, let's say if this ever happened, it'd be terrible. Let's say you're riding a motorcycle and you got in a real bad accident. If 5G is available in the area and it's fully loaded and ready to rock and roll, the future is coming of truth where they will be able to have a doctor who could be 1,000, 10,000, 20,000 miles, whatever, a large amount of distance away, controlling a robot and doing an open surgery right there on the ground with you. And the latency is of real time. So when the doctor moves his or her hand, it's actually happening. which is really
think
cool.
I think that's happened already now.
It probably has. It wouldn't surprise me.
Doctor
Wouldn't surprise me.
using robot for surgery. I'm gonna look for surgery.
Yeah,
I'll find that.
No, it's cool, but the overall thought process or the way that that's going to work, it's going to change. You know, if you look over the last, man, if you're really,
It's been happening already. Yeah.
Yeah, if we're-
soft tissue surgery with minimal
Yep.
human help. Robot. Oh, a robot did it by itself.
Yeah.
Oh God,
That's
scary.
artificial. That's artificial intelligence standalone. But you know, if you look at the way this changes communication, it changes communication from human being to human being massively by the amount of data you can take or get and basically get processed. You know, the human brain actually we are now becoming the process problem. We can't process fast enough for actually the amount of data that can be delivered, believe it or not, anymore. So at some point they're gonna have to, I don't know, biomechanically, you know.
Well, that's
change
what
it.
Elon Musk is
Yeah.
doing right now. Elon Musk is working on a Neuralink that it's a transmitter, but he's using it for Alzheimer patients. I believe it's Alzheimer's, where it goes into their brain, goes into some certain stem, and they're able to function, and they can actually control their body and do what they have a normal life to them. But he's working on that. But he's also talked about it like on the Joe Rogan podcast, where you'll be able to upload and download information and retain information from it and pull from it like whenever you want.
Which is a little scary.
It's terrifying.
And if you really stop and think about that, I mean, your brain is a bunch of electrical waves for that matter. And the long story short of it is to be able to reprogram those electrical waves means to be able to introduce or remove memory for that matter. And you know, used in a positive way, there's various positive things. I think the same thing with stem cells, right? Hey, if you had a liver problem, you know, my mom passed away in 2017 from metastatic breast cancer that morphed and changed and finally attacked her liver, and that's ended up what took her out. But if they had the stem cell, which they're probably already doing, they just ain't released it big, to where they could take a sample of her blood and regrow her liver, and now she's got liver. So there's no way they're going to give her a 72-year-old woman who smokes cigarettes a lot, you know, another liver. They just wouldn't do it. You know.
Do you know, like in Canada, they have this thing called a maid service? And the maid service, so what you talked about with your mom going through all that stuff, and I'm sorry for the loss of your mom.
Oh,
That
thank you
sucks.
very much.
I couldn't imagine losing my mom.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Well, my mom's really special to me.
Yeah.
Both my parents, my whole family is they're all really special to me. But they have this maid service, and it's assisted suicide, and it's a government program that they use. And so what they do is, and I think it's a horrible thing. Me personally, I think it's bad. But like they have a board that decides if you should just be suicided instead of going through any kind of cancer treatment. So like if they look at it and they would have looked at your mom and they would have said, well, you're 72 years old, you want to go through chemo.
Yeah.
You don't have much life left to live, so we're going to go ahead and suggest the maid service.
Yeah.
And there was a case where there was this veteran who he was in a wheelchair and he needed a ramp built to his house. And then he requested to the VA that said, hey, and this was in Canada, their VA, which is basically our money serving for them. And then he goes, I need a ramp here. I can't get into my place. They came back with, we can't get you a ramp within 2 years, but we recommend the maid service. So they basically just told him, for 2 years, just go ahead and kill yourself.
Just go off yourself.
Yeah. So that was what was terrifying to me. But with
You're talking some
regrowing-
Dr. Kevorkian shit right
That's
there.
exactly
you know
what
I'm
it
saying?
is. That's exactly what it is. But like with the whole regrowth of tissue and regrowth of like the liver,
Yeah.
I do think that stuff is happening. There are cases, I believe, of them regrowing certain things. I just don't see why we just don't have.
Don't do it full.
We don't do it full-heartedly.
I
But
agree.
I also think that there's and we've talked about this before. I do enjoy a good conspiracy theory.
Yeah, I know you
but
do.
with the cancer society of how much money is involved with chemotherapy and with radiation and with all the big business and big pharma that's involved in it, they would never let anything like that come into fruition.
Probably not. But I mean, you know, if you think about it, okay. So a couple of things on that thought, 'cause that's a really interesting thought. Is that right now there's so much money in this world printed. I mean, just think of what the U.S. government's been printing over since the Biden administration. Yeah, fuck Biden, by the way. Anyways, but think of how much money they've been printing and how much money is out there. So the point is that, you know, if you were, you know, like Eli Lilly, whoever's going to produce this cancer curing drug, you're going to wait till the population gets to a certain amount because you've already done the mathematics and say, okay, our revenue is now going to be X. So we're going to wait till it gets to 16 billion. Then we're going to release this drug and we're going to charge so much. So that could be the thought process. Or, for people who had cancer, or look at Magic Johnson, great example. Somebody, hey, I like Magic Johnson, by the way, but the dude should have been dead a long time ago. If AIDS had taken its course, but he got his money, he's got, fame, and he's a legend, so he's alive, but there are many people who probably got it at the same time who ain't alive, who didn't have the opportunity. So my point isn't to diss on Magic Johnson, but to say it's just like you said, it's probably a revenue thing. My thought is, I could be wrong, and I probably am, but if they had a cancer curing drug, they would have probably released it by now. And the only reason I think that is because there's a lot of important people in the world that have probably been affected by it, or their family who they love very much been affected by it, and would give everything they could or push all their power to have it released.
Here's a theory for you.
Okay, let's hear
Here's
it.
my theory. It has been created because there was a case of like 7 scientists that were all together that did create for, I don't remember if it was a certain type of cancer, but it was for a cancer that they found out what it was attacking. They were able to provide proteins and all that kind of stuff to it for it to be reversed.
Yep.
Cured cancer. And all of a sudden, and this is all documented. I'll have to find it and see if I can post it with this. If I remember it, I'll probably forget it. But each one of them had either committed suicide,
Yeah.
or died of a natural
Funny
cause.
how that worked.
That's
Hillary
weird.
Clinton must have been
But-
involved in that shit.
She must have been. But here's my thing. Here's my thing on that is that I think, since there's so many people, that powerful people in this world, like these multi-billionaires that, or even the ones that are not even on the list of the top billionaires in the world, because there's way richer.
But it's just billionaires.
Yeah, just billionaires or really rich people or famous people.
Yep.
Or influential famous people. They have still been creating it so that way when they're sick, they have enough money to be able to throw at that pharmaceutical company that either stole the patent or has owned the patent now for them to be cured.
Anything's possible. I again tend to lead towards, if you take the top 1,000 richest...
Because that's what I would do if I was a person like that.
Yeah, but I mean, if you take the top 1,000 richest people in the world, and then how many people do they know? And let's be honest, those people at the upper echelon of society, they've got a pretty large Rolodex of friends, family, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, that's how they get their power for the most part. And yeah, it's generational, I'm sure. But I would think at this point, they would either be getting it, have it, whatever. Well, the one thing about cancer that's interesting is if you look at cancer to me is like a virus, basically. There's so many different types of different cancers, right? So my mom, I know before she passed, they did a biopsy of her liver, and she never said anything to the family because we think she knew that she was going to go. And she had like 13 different types. It was 13 different types of cancer out of the biopsy, and out of the 13 different types of cancer in the biopsy, 6 had not been seen and were highly aggressive. The other 7 they had seen and might be able to do something with, but these 6 was like, we don't know, and they're highly aggressive. They're growing fast, rapid, and so it was like only a matter of time. So, at the end of the day, it's like, if you had it, would you release it? How much money would you make? I think if they had it, you'd be sitting on a gold pot. And I hate to say it, but that's how a business would think, right? If I had it, man, I'm going to make so much money. If I don't release it and somebody else figures it out and they release it, guess what? Now I'm in a shit show because now I'm going to be competing on price with everybody else. So I think from a business perspective, if somebody had it like an Eli Lilly, I think they would have released it because they'd be able to charge whatever you want. More importantly for them, they'd be charging the insurance companies whatever they want, and they could get away with it. Oh, bro, who doesn't hate insurance? Insurance is a load of fucking shit, and everybody knows
It's horrible.
It is.
But then again, you want reoccurring customers.
You do.
So you want a reoccurring customer coming in. So you want somebody who's going to be spending every last dime trying to get healthier, or at least make their life last a little bit longer.
Yep.
So they're going to be getting a lot more, and the insurance company is paying
Oh,
if they
100%.
have it.
So then, and kind of just what you said, which is this is where you can flip the theory about, because there's theories about, well, we want to keep the population in check, that's why we're not releasing this. Well, that just goes against that whole theory right there, right? And I'm not saying you're saying that, but I'm saying that goes against the whole theory because, well, if we want population to go down, that means you want people to die. So you wouldn't release the cure for cancer then, because then you keep people alive longer. But if you're a business and you have this cure and you release it, now you're gonna be making more money. Now you're keeping people alive a lot longer as well. Which, so it can kind of go both ways. I feel that they have some under control, and I'm pretty confident of that. But some of the others that are maybe less seen or don't happen as much types of cancer, I would be willing to bet you they don't have it just because from a fundamental business is pretty general. If we have it, we're first to market with it. We're gonna make it's just a big bang for our buck. So I would have thought by now they would have.
Did you hear recently that Kamala Harris said that one of the ways to affect climate change is reducing population?
I've heard this statement before her.
She just said,
but she's an
twice.
idiot. She's an idiot, and she's terrible. And you know what people say? Oh, look, he's saying because she's a woman, or he's saying because what is she? Half Chinese and black or something? I don't know. Whatever. I don't care what she is. It's the fact that she is a terrible vice president. I can't attach anything to her name. I mean, there's nothing big that she, and I'll kind of say the same thing about Pence too. Unfortunately, Pence, yeah, you know what? I'm not just going to pick on Democrat. I'll pick on Republican every day. I don't think Pence did shit. I think he just basically did, wash Trump's shoes for him because he didn't have anything to do. I can't think of any accomplishments from him as well. My point is that I was hopeful that she was going to bring something more to the table because, isn't she the first woman, black or Chinese or whatever it is?
They say that she's black, but she wasn't from an African American descent.
Okay.
I can't remember what it was.
I thought
she's
Chinese
she's more
was
Indian.
in there.
She's
Okay.
more Indian. I think she's Indian. I'll look it up here in a second. But
well, if
more
you've got
Indian.
the spotlight on you, right? If you got the spotlight on you, you I think you're going to need it. Just like if Hillary Clinton would have won, I would have expected more out of her. Not because she was a woman, but it's you know what? You're going to leave your star imprint here, and so you better do something. I would say extra special to be remembered by. Obama can say, well, hey, I did Obamacare, and I opened up the bathroom to girls and men, and all this craziness that we have in this world, which is just my opinion. But he did. And I actually voted for Obama the first time, thinking there was going to be change.
A lot of Republicans did.
Yeah, thinking there was going to be change because I didn't like what was it, McCain at that time. He just didn't. He wasn't as good of a speaker. And I learned my unfortunate lesson, and the lesson to be learned there is I didn't know. I thought one of the things he said was really good, and I'm gonna butcher Obama's words, but many have done worse. Is he said something along the lines that, hey, I don't care if you're gay, straight, blah blah blah, whatever you are, you're equal in this country. And I was cool with that. I'm like, hey, I really don't care if you're gay, if you're not. That doesn't bother me a bit because you're not banging on my front door, trying to talk to me about it. Cool, go do your thing. Your bedroom's your own bedroom, and I may disagree with it or not want that for me, but for you, cool, go do that. What I didn't realize is the message behind that message was, hey, if you want to be a girl tomorrow, I can just be a girl, and if you want to be a boy tomorrow, you can just be a boy. And I'm sorry for you people who think that, but the shit just don't work like that. Reality of this world is we've known throughout. In fact, the rest of the world's laughing at us right now. I mean, especially all of Asia. Like, look, we're sitting over here teaching our kids how to break down 45s and 9mm and stuff, and you're over here fighting on what a dick is and what a vagina is. Like, we figured this shit out fucking hundreds of years ago. We don't even need to have this conversation. So while we're fighting over stupid, they're over there building, and that's the problem in our country right now. Is we need to get back to what matters, which is really, I think, taking care of our people, taking care of our country, make sure that everybody's got good chances and opportunities, and making sure that wealth doesn't leave this country in exponential numbers. And as a businessman, I can tell you, I've seen it firsthand happening over my 22-year career, especially with China. China's no fool. China is you want to talk about, they say China's communist. It is communist, but China is the biggest capitalist country in the world. These are people who understand money and understand how to get this money. And that's exactly what they're doing. They'll overtake the U.S. as the largest economy, within the next 5 to 10 years. I don't know what the exact projection is, but it's in that time period. It's probably going to be sooner than that. That's a scary thing, man, because the truth of like military and how we're so safe in this world is because the mighty dollar is what rules the world. I mean, yes, we have one hell of a military force. The strongest military ever to be built is this country's. But it's also backed up by economic warfare. We can shut you the fuck out. I mean, straight up, we will shut your money off. Hey, we are the market, with our dollar. Well, if China takes that over, they gain that strength, and we know how important that strength is. And that's part of the reason why we're in Taiwan doing what we're doing. Like, hey, if you touch Taiwan, we're gonna blow that ass up. We don't want you taking the chips too. That's the other thing.
Bring the sun back to you.
Yeah, we'll bring the sun back to you, which it just doesn't end well. And I don't back the Chinese, 100%. I back my country, but I gotta be realistic. If Hawaii said that they wanted to secede from the United States, and they did, and then China said, United States, if you touch China, we're going to blow your shit up. What will we say? We're like, yeah, you do that, and you ain't going to have a country anymore. We're going to melt you off the face of the earth. It's a very similar situation over there. A lot of people don't realize that the true, I'll say, like Republicans of China, got killed, murdered, and exiled basically to Taiwan, and then took that over, and it was basically the democratic arm. And then communism swept over all of China. Now you have these people in Taiwan who are kind of ruled by China, but kind of aren't. It's supposed to be more free, and are. I've been there many times. A very free place, very beautiful place, and the people there are awesome.
Taiwan.
Yeah, and the food is great as well. But the truth of the matter at the end of the day, what a lot of people don't want to hear, because they want to hear the message that the media brings is, whether we like it or not, Taiwan is a part of China. When you go there, it even says ROC when you get your shit stamped. You know how I know that? Because I've been there like 50 times. And ROC, you know what that stands for?
Republic of China.
Republic of China, right. And so when you roll into Taiwan, so it is. And we have, in my opinion, I get it. I know why we're there. I understand it from a strategic position. But if you want to be truthful about it, it'd be the same thing like I said about Hawaii. We really need to stop getting ourselves in these positions of trying to police the world. And you know what? That's part of it. It's like, where does your freedom, where does freedom not? Because if we wouldn't have did what we did in World War II, we'd probably be speaking German at this point. Mm-hmm. So when do you really step in and overtake that versus when do you don't? And that gets into some real, I think cloudy water, because what my definition is may be different from what Joe versus you versus Susie and so on and so forth. And there has to be a decision made before, an Adolf Hitler would be unleashed upon this world. And to those of you who may use this time to say, well, hey, we used the nuke on Nagasaki and Hiroshima. Did you know that them Japanese soldiers would not have stopped fighting? We would have lost hundreds of thousands of people. American soldiers going in there. Had we had to go in there, them are the strongest fighting military people in the world, man. They will die with honor. You heard the kamikaze? Well, the kamikaze, mm-hmm. I mean, that's how much they believe in it. So you either did that and showed them that we could erase cities immediately, or we threw all our boys in and it would have been worse than storming the beaches of Normandy. So, it's like, it's which one of those evils do you pick?
It's who's carrying the bigger stick.
It's exactly what it is. And that's, a lot of people go back and say like, well, the American Indian, you give the land, we should give the land back. Bro, they got conquered. I'm sorry.
We carried the bigger stick. I've had that conversation so many times mm-hmm. at work. One of the guys I work with, great guy, his name's Ryan. Mm-hmm. I think he's a great guy. We have a lot of great conversations. His heritage goes back to Native American. Mm-hmm. And mine, further down the line, one of my great-great-grandmothers was Native American Cherokee Indian.
4% Cherokee here, buddy.
Hey, that's a lot more than me, I think.
Yeah. Really? Do you know what you are?
I don't. I've never done a genealogy test. I probably should do one, mm-hmm. but I know that's either great-great-grandmother or great-great-great-great-grandmother. It's one of those 2 or 3 mm-hmm. grades or something. Mm-hmm. But he was like, ever since, and he said it as a joke, our land was stolen from us. And I was like, you guys had bows and arrows and we had guns, and you guys didn't even have the wheel. And you, for the longest time, you also didn't ride on horses. Yeah. You didn't even domesticate them. Yeah. So really, what was it? And he said, well, we got pushed out to the mountains. We got pushed out to our own land.
It was conquered.
We took it over, but you guys still have that. You live on government land.
That was conquered.
Everything's provided.
Yeah, dude.
And there's still a lot of them are still shitholes.
They are. Well, though, let's be realistic. What really happened there too? So first of all, that was conquered. That's just no way around it. That's the fact. They ended up getting firearms, and they were still conquered because they were infighting them. Now, had they united, like all the Indian tribes, and really try and fight us, I mean, that would have been a different. Who knows what would have happened.
Well, they were still enslaving each other and killing. Like when you said killing each other, they were enslaving each other even before we came here, mm-hmm. and they were massacring each other. So that's also something that people don't really pay attention to or realize or even talk about in American history. Is the Native Americans? They were very brutal to each other.
Oh, 100%.
And also, they were if you care about animals and shit, like they were massacring buffalo to scales of hundreds of thousands. They would drive all of them off of a cliff to eat one of them, and that's just like it's. If you're going to be a conservationist at all, like a lot of conservatives, like conservative Republicans, are conservationists. Like they do care about the animal population. They really have a heart for them.
Yep.
You don't do that to a buffalo.
Yep.
And they have the stack of buffalo. And it's like that's nothing compared.
I had never heard that happening before. But the two things I know for a fact is one, there's no arguing about it. They were as a conquered people. And this, I won't say this so much as a fact, but I also know that when alcohol was introduced to the Indian tribes, I mean, that was like the heroin for them. I mean, it was terrible, right? It's just bad. Still is till this day. I mean, it really is. So, but here's the other piece that people should learn from, right? So we always talk about, at least I always say, try to learn everything you can. And this is the number one thing you should take away from that. Look, we can't give back lands to people we conquered. I mean, It's just how it is. I mean, I guess we could, but we're not going to, and we shouldn't. So sorry about you. That's what happened. You know what? As far as I'm concerned, American Indians are Americans at heart. Now, I mean, that's just how it is. I believe anybody born in this country is truly American. I mean, you can say, hey, I'm African American or whatever, but you're an American. I see everybody as Americans. If you're here and you've left Mexico, as I'm just using as an example, or Canada as an example, you come over here and you're now an American citizen, you're an American. That's
Americans.
That's what I think. But I gotta hit this one point.
Go ahead.
If I forget this point, then I'm gonna it's gonna be bad. Which is the learning piece here that I think people need to really learn from was that, hey, American Indians, lay down your arms. Hey, American Indians, we're gonna take care of you. If you want to know how the government is really going to take care of you and you think the government's the answer for you and your family, look no further to how they treated and took care of their American Indian. And that's facts. That's hardcore facts.
100%. They don't.
Yeah, they don't. It's some terrible shit what they did to those
Nothing
people.
that's going on there.
Yep.
So talk about Americans real quick. Americans create some of the best things in the entire world, in the history of the world. Cars being among them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
American muscle cars. You obviously have a few of those kinds of cars.
Couple.
I am interested because I don't know a whole lot about the car culture.
Okay.
And I am willing to learn. I'm open to learning about it. What drives you to enjoying an American muscle car?
I'd say the first thing for me that I find enjoyable about an American muscle car is the sound. And you know, there's different types of sounds to an American muscle car. If it's cammed up, hopped up or not, you know, if you got nitrous on it, you know, how big is the engine, you know, blah, blah, blah. So there's many different ways, you can, or what type of exhaust system do you have on the back of that car? So there's many different ways of kind of hyping that sound up or down, depending on what you're wanting to get out of the vehicle. So every like man or woman and you know, who's big into cars, like I am for that matter, will decide what they want. And then they go out and customize it to fit their bill, or that maybe, hey, it already comes like this from the factory, and I like the way the Corvette sounds, or the Camaro, or the Mustang, or whatever. So for me, it's I would say, you know, I always say this in my channel, man. I always say, you know, car guys, or real car guys and gals for that matter, really look at three things in cars. And you know what? I won't put them in any specific order, but I'll say sound, looks, and then speed and handling. Okay, and the reason why I say that is because, well, most guys love the way a big, fat ass, you know, 440 big block sounds, you know, just rolling out, you know, just chugging with a big ass cam in it. And then, you know, some people, me included, oh man, I like the way the Camaro looks, or I like the way, you ever looked at a car and just like a sports car, whatever, just be like, damn, now that's sexy. You know, you look at it and you're like, yeah, I could see myself in that. So looks. And then third is, you know, why did we get into this in the first place, which was speed, the need for speed. I mean, you know, there is an absolute thrill. Same when you're flying an airplane or whatnot. There's an absolute thrill or hype, adrenaline rush that you get from racing, for that matter. And so you know, that's how I judge a car, if it can be involved in the collection or not. Is that does it look good? Like, is it sexy? Okay, no, it's not. Or yes, it is. Does it sound good? Okay, yes, it is. Or no, it's not. Tesla is a prime example of a car that doesn't look all that great, in my opinion. Certainly has no sound to it, but it meets the third criteria. And is it fast? You know, you felt it. That thing will snap your neck. It's fast. Tesla Plaid specifically. So that's how I look at cars. And the problem with a lot of car enthusiasts can be is that they get so biased. It's like Republican and Democrat. You got to get around that and grow. What's truly like, what makes it cool? Like, why am I doing this? Why do I like this? Oh, I hear a lot of guys say, oh, I hate Ford, or I hate Chevy. And it's like, why? Tell me why. Well, I don't like the performance of a Mustang. Well, the Mustang performs different than a Vette, performs different than a Camaro, performs different than a Hellcat, performs different than a Ferrari, and you just keep going on and on. They've got their own kind of specific uses for each type of car. So that's a long-winded answer saying I think those three criteria are a really good way to kind of judge whether the car is kind of meant for you or not.
I've always thought of Mustangs as a girl's car.
Really?
Every time I see a Mustang.
There's going to be a lot of dudes who you just pissed off right now.
That's fine with me. I'm okay with it. I'm used to people being pissed at me. It doesn't bother me. But every time I've seen a Mustang, it's a woman driving it. Almost every time. And they're always like the V6 ones, and it's got the one exhaust on it.
Yeah.
And it's like, but every time I see like a mean, nasty Mustang, that sounds good, like it's ripping something. It's like, it sounds good, but that's really about it. Because it's like I always relate it to it's a girl's car. Like that's what I've always seen.
So I will tell you this, and I'll do you a favor right now. I'm going to go ahead and invite you right now, cordially, to some of the car meets that I go to, and I will.
Really?
Oh, I'm going to tell you right now. You're going to see some badass, kick-ass Mustangs.
You keep talking.
Okay, you're going to see some badass, kick-ass Mustangs that you're gonna know when you see that. Look, and I'm not saying a woman wouldn't be driving this. You may find a woman's driving it. But a Mustang is definitely a dude's car.
Really?
Oh, 100% a dude's car.
I mean, it's an old man's car like the Corvettes. The Corvettes are old man cars. I know
bro.
you've got one.
No.
You got the CO6, right?
Z06, yeah.
Z06 or CO6?
Z is in Z. Like
Is there
zebra.
a CO6?
There's a C6, which is
Oh,
the different
okay.
type of years. A C6, C7, C8.
Okay.
Like C8's the current model.
Well, I know you've got one, but every time I've seen a Corvette, it is, except for this one time, it's driven by an old white dude, and there's always. It's always the same thing. It's like a Grand Sport or something, which they're cool cars,
Yeah.
but it's like it's ruined it for me to see a Corvette. I'm like, but the new Corvettes and the new Corvette, that is, which one's the new one?
It's the C8.
That's the C8.
C8, yeah.
That thing is sexy.
See? You
I've
like-
driven one a couple times. A friend of mine bought one, and then he'd recently sold it. But that thing, it handles amazingly. I think it does.
See? You like it.
It had just enough speed for me on it, and it looks so good.
See?
Like it is just it. Every time I see it, I'm like, God bless. That's such a good looking car.
You know,
I think they did it right.
They did. I think Chevy did a good job. I think they could have made them faster for the price. I mean, honestly, they could have truly did a lot more damage to like Ferrari or McLaren or Lamborghini had they put a little bit more time and consideration into the speed of the car. I talk quarter mile times. Like when you're a car guy and you like to race, you typically talk like what is your quarter mile time? How fast do you run the quarter in? And so I just wish they had made it a little faster. But to your point is, you know, they did a good job on the C8 in general. But here's something funny to think about. You know what the most iconic car? So if you could take off your American skin for a second and, you know, go to Europe for a second. Let's go to Europe for just a second. Or any other country for that matter. When you ask a person, and trust me, I've been all the world asks them. When you ask a person outside of this country, when you think of an American dude who's made it driving a car, what car do you think of?
Like any car in the past or future,
Any
or not
car,
future,
any
but
car,
up
right?
to now.
Any car, like today. If you ask them, you know what they'll say?
They'll probably say a Corvette.
A Corvette. It's the most iconic American car ever. And people, I need to see all the American dudes trying to argue me right now. It's a Mustang. It ain't a Mustang, bro, because you got to again take off your American skin first. You know, we would fight amongst each other as Americans, saying, "Ah, it's a Mustang, it's a Camaro, it's whatever." But it's truly a Corvette based on the outside opinion of the people of the United States. All of them are. They can always think of American dude driving a Corvette. Which is what it is, and that's why it's so iconic still to this day, and that's why they continue to build them. They're supposed to be building an electric one in the future. It's called the Zora, and it's supposed to be as fast, if not faster, than a Plaid Tesla.
Really?
And if it is, I can guarantee you that I'll get rid of the Tesla and I'll go down the path of the Zora. But
If you're looking to get rid of the Tesla, I'll take it for free.
I'm
I'll
sure.
take it for free.
I'm sure you will. I'm sure you will, brother. I know you will.
That thing, okay, so I have to explain. So that thing is so fast. For a second, I thought we were going to crash because of that car. But I was like, my shoes that I was wearing, my shoes were still on the floorboard. And when you took off one of the times, my feet had like moved away from my shoes. Like I could feel it. And my whole body was like getting pulled back behind the seat. And then you asked me at one point, you were like, hey, put your head up against the headrest real quick. And I was like, well, why? He's like, 'cause I don't want you to slam your head on the back of that thing. And when you did that, I was expecting it, and it still threw my head back.
Did it?
Dude, it was awesome. And then when we did the launch mode, that was even cooler.
Oh, the
And
cheetah pull.
Is that cheetah pull?
Cheetah mode, yeah.
Okay, so I called it the launch mode. That's my
Yeah.
bad.
No, you're good.
So when we did the cheetah pull, that was insane. I've never gone that fast in a car before, from a 0 to 60 standpoint.
Yeah.
And we were completely obeying the law of the state of
100%.
Indiana.
In Mexico.
Yeah,
We were in
even
Mexico,
better.
remember?
We were.
Right.
Oh yeah, we were
That's
in
where we were.
Mexico.
We drove to Mexico
out in
on
the
that
desert
thing.
where there's
Yeah.
no speed limit sign, where
We
they
only had
encourage
to,
you.
it only
Yeah.
took us like 15 days, you know.
That's 100% is where we were at. I forgot about that, but that was insane. Like it was incredible. And then I've been a Tesla fan for a while, and I wasn't a Tesla fan at first. My brother kind of turned me towards it, the guys at work always give me crap about being a Tesla fan. And I always tell them, like whenever you ride in one, and I rode in a Model Y the first time, and that's when I was just like, okay, I really like this car. And the Model Y to me was fast. Like I'd punch it. I didn't punch it all the way, but I'd give it a, I can't say gas, but I'd give it some power.
I give it some gas. You give it some electric.
I gave it some electric gas, and it would still take off. And at the end of it, I felt sick to my stomach because I was just like, that was just so much. Just go and slow down, and slow down. But I've always tried to encourage them to ride in one, and I would really love it if you brought it in one day, just for them to see it, just for them to look at it.
I'll tell you what, I'll make you a deal. Because you said, my son, he loves the fire trucks. So you said you might be able to get him a ride in a fire truck. When you invite me in for that, I'll bring the Plaid in. I'll be happy to give the guys a ride.
Oh, yes.
Because here's
change their minds.
Oh, here's the thing, man. And this, I do a lot of work on TikTok and a lot of streaming and stuff like that. Right now, I'm shadow banned for some weird ass reason. But anyways, once that gets over,
follow them on TikTok and Instagram and all that. Yeah.
Maximum Overdrive.
That's right.
But yeah, man, one of the things I deal with a lot on that stream, because people love their combustion. I love combustion too, bro. But the way of the future is probably electric, and that's just, it's not me who makes the rules. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, electric is faster in general. And I know people are gonna be like, oh, it's not true. It is true. You don't have to like it. I didn't say it sounded better. I didn't say it was better. But by default, I mean, there's a lot of things you can do with electric now. Yeah, it's on a battery charge and whatnot. But you're gonna see in the future a lot of things coming out electric. And just like you felt with the Tesla, I mean, you felt nothing like that before in your life, have you? Sincerely, right? Well, I mean, that's because of a couple of things, right? So I spent a lot of my time arguing with, I shouldn't even argue with them, but with idiots trying to change their mind on TikTok, especially. Like, oh, why is there a Tesla in your collection? First of all, because I can buy one and put it whatever the fuck I want in my collection. And then second of all is because it is fast as fuck. Yes. It is the fastest fucking car by default. I'm talking like literally it comes out of the factory and it's a nasty nightmare. So there is no transmission. You know what a transmission is. You got it on your bike, right? You're shifting gears. You got it in your truck. Well, imagine not having a transmission. So it takes time. That takes out time right there. You don't have to shift gears. It's just 0 to forward. I mean, there's basically forward and reverse. You're going one way or the other. And you're going it very, very fast. So, a lot of guys, I give you a great example. When you typically take off 12 to 15% as a rule to crank for when horsepower hits. So you take off. You have to subtract that. So if they say, hey, my car's got 1,000 horsepower, that's before the crank, and then you take off like 12 or 15, let's just say it's 15%. So now you're really down to, let's just say you took off 100 horsepower. So you got 900 horsepower at the wheel, okay? Which that's a fast car, by the way. The Tesla, by default, has 1,020 at the wheel, and it comes with 1,020. And the reason why it doesn't lose any is because there is no crank, there is no transmission. It just literally goes, so there's no shifting of gears, there's no nothing. It just goes right through. And the torque is insane because electric, unlike combustion, electric is instant. So you felt that throttle response when you push it. I mean, that's kind of what you do.
That's exactly what it felt like.
It's a funny face. You're just being like one eyeball's being sucked to the right and one's being sucked to the left. Look like a fucking walleye. But yeah. So that electric though gives it instant throttle response, instant torque. There's no questions. There's no comments. It's right to the wheelbase instantaneously. And when I first got that car, I could not believe it. I couldn't keep going out into the countryside and just hammering over and over. I bet you I was out there the first night I got that car for, I should say the second night, because the first night it was dark driving home and I wanted to learn. So the second day I spent all that. I was driving everywhere, man, just feeling it, and I'd recharge it. But bro, it was and still to this day, man, it doesn't get old. It does not get old. And I'll tell you what, when I get in a different car like a McLaren or, there's several cars in the collection, or Yanko Camaro.
That McLaren is gorgeous that you have.
Thank you.
What color red is that?
It's called like a maroon. It's called Amnareth Red.
It is gorgeous.
It's called Amnareth Red. I don't know if somebody knows. I
did touch the interior on it. I'm not gonna lie. I looked at my hand first, and I was just touching the interior.
You're good.
It looked good. Yeah.
That's the thing is that once you hit that Plaid several times, I mean, kick it down, and you go get in a Ferrari or a McLaren or a Lamborghini or whatever, your expectation is like been changed forever. Like now, I just know by default, I'm like, if I really want to go fast, I'm gonna get in the Tesla. I'm going to get in the Tesla Plaid because that gives me a feel that these other cars just can't. And I can get that feel out of like, there's 1,000 HP Hellcat in there, put some slicks on it, or the Yanko, put some slicks on it.
Does it have? But that's the question I was going to ask too, because in the Tesla that I drove, the Model Y, which is my friend Chad's, which thank you again, Chad, for letting me. If you're watching this, I hope you're watching this, but thank you again for letting me drive it because it was amazing to drive.
Support your friend, Chad.
Exactly, support me, buddy, please. But I felt like the tires were not going to spin. Like no matter what, I had the traction on anything. Can you spin the tires on a Tesla at all? Like, can you actually like get them to roast or anything?
So two things. So the Plaid, I mean,
If you can turn traction control off on it.
yeah, you can't. You really can't turn like traction control off per se, not to my knowledge. Maybe they update that in the future, but they're AWD, so all wheel drive, right? So I can tell you when I can break loose. There are two ways I've been able to break loose on the Tesla Plaid. One is if it gets like 45 degrees or below. If I go out and kick it, I start to lose traction.
You're talking about temperature outside.
Temperature outside, okay. Like it's cold, and I'll tell you what, there's no American car or there's no muscle car or any car that could handle that even close to that. Even at 50 miles an hour, you'd be on some of them stronger American muscle. You need it to be like 85, 90 degrees, or sit there and just burnt your tires to heat them up, because that heat is what gives you the stickiness. Well, when it's cold outside, those roads are frozen cold, right? And you're talking 40, 30 degrees. I mean, that car. So that's when the Tesla will break loose. The other way I found is that I've got about 3,500 miles roughly on that Plaid. And I basically, if you were to look at a tire from like kind of like the top view down, here's the center, like the center of the tread. It's kind of hard to explain, but here's like the center of the tread, like right here. It is perfectly eating it up from the interior, from the innards to the exterior. So my insides of the tire are going bald. And it's kind of the first time I've seen on a car that is evenly eating up the wheels versus like a lot of times I'll just see like the outside of the tire being eaten up before the inside. In this case, all four tires are being eaten up. So that's the other way, is when those tires go bald, I got no traction. The thing will break loose, and it's starting to break loose a lot more now because those tires are almost full, which they're Michelin. They're great tires that are on there. I love these Pilot Cup Sports that are on there, and I'll have to get more of them. But it's like, damn, just after 3,000 or 3,500 miles. That's because that's all I've done. That's all I do with the car is kick it down. I mean, that's it. It's a race car, bro. I mean, you just go out and smash and smash and smash and smash. Never broke anything. Never had any problems. No gap problems. No issues. No real seal problems. Because people always comment how shitty the Tesla build is. It's not. I own one. I can tell you. I would tell you I have no relationship with Elon Musk. I would say his car was shit if it was, but it really isn't. It's worked very well. And that's the other thing I'll say about electric. If you were to build up a 9-second street car or 8-second street car, and
is that a quarter mile or is that like a
quarter mile?
Okay.
So you run the quarter mile, and I mean anything under really 10 seconds is considered a pretty quick car. When you're getting under 9 seconds, I mean this is some serious shit. I mean even at 9 seconds, 9.5 is serious shit in my opinion. You get in the 8 seconds, that's really serious. You're in 7, you're talking like start to get into some of the big boy stuff. So the fact that this car repeats itself over and over and over, and I've never broken anything, never had anything break, batteries, motors, etc., etc. If you did this with a normal combustion car, like let's say you built up a Roadrunner or something, whatever you like, that to run 9 seconds, you are going to break something within probably 15 pulls. Everybody knows it. It's just kind of hey, something's going to have to be retuned or tweaked, or something's going to crunch or break. You're just waiting for the failure to happen. And I'm not saying there's not ever a failure on electric cars. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying that I've driven this car for 3,500 miles now. And out of those miles, all I do is kick this thing. All I do is take people's ride on it and just smash the shit out of it. Because that's what it was meant to me for. And I've not had one issue. I can guarantee, if I took the 68 Coronet that's beefed up to 1150 and did the same shit over and over and over.
Which color one was that?
The blue one that was on the bottom underneath the Sublime Roadrunner. Yeah. That motherfucker would be broke down under 10 poles. Under 10 poles, I guarantee it. I mean, that's just how it is. And y'all car guys, you know what I'm talking about. It just happens, right? You're gonna break this piece, you're gonna break that piece, and you fix it.
But that's what builds your relationship with your car, I think. Because if I was always constantly working, because I used to have a dirt bike, and that's all I did on the dirt bike. I would just that's what you're supposed to do.
Yep.
You just gun it and you just go.
Yeah.
And not every time, but after every few rides, I had to fix something on the bike, and obviously I crashed a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm always replacing something, but I built that relationship with the bike. I had that we've been together thing.
Yeah.
And we've gone through some stuff together. Sure. And I think it's the same way with combustion engine vehicles. I had a guy on my podcast before. His name's Steve Dillman. He's passed since then. God rest his soul, Steve. And he was a huge impact on my life in not the countless lives that he's affected in his. But he used to drag race. So when he drag raced, he used to do rail cars, which are like insanely fast.
I've seen him.
And then he did he had I don't even remember what kind of a Chevelle. I think it was a Chevelle.
Beautiful car, by the way. I
It's a
love those
gorgeous
fucking
car.
Chevelles. They're just gorgeous.
And he raced that, or it was a Chevelle or a Nova.
Or Nova, yeah.
Yeah, and
Either way, they're
it
still
looks similar.
badass.
They're
But
still
I
good
like
looking cars.
I love those Chevelles, bro. Sorry,
They look
go ahead.
great. No, you're good.
Yeah.
And he took me on a ride in it one time, and because I always told him, I was like, Steve, I'd mow his lawn for him, and I was like, hey, can I get a ride in your car today? And he was like, hey, I can't really get it out today. I've got the engine torn apart. And for years, like I think it was 4 or 5 years, he was because on the weekends he'd go race. He was always rebuilding it. After every race, he was always rebuilding it. And then there was a couple times I'd go in there and look and see what he's doing. And he's an old guy too. He was not young. He's in his 60s at this point. And he's just taking out parts and replacing parts, fixing tuning and all that stuff. And I'm like, do you do this every race? He's like, every race. Every race you do this.
And all the professional race cars, they're breaking their cars down. Hell, during the race sometimes, fixing problems and whatnot. I mean,
I did get a ride one time though. I did, and it was awesome.
Did you?
That's
good.
It was loud. It was mean. He didn't even have a passenger seat. I just sat on the floorboard and up against the roll bar, and I was just sitting there, and he's like, just hold on to the side.
Must have been fast if he had a roll cage in, because that's typically under like 10
awesome.
seconds. Yeah.
I have no idea what his times were. You could probably look him up on YouTube. Okay. But I sat in the passenger seat, and he was in his driveway. He had a little bit of a long driveway, and he just sat there and he revved it up real loud, and then he punched it, and it was the rumbling of everything.
Oh yeah,
the vibrations from the engine.
Different feel completely
different feel, and
100%.
it was. I walked away with like the biggest smile. I was like, I can't believe I was in a drag strip car.
And that's the thing about
cool.
combustion, like you said, is you build a relationship. I mean, let's be honest. Look, I don't want parts to break on combustion, but it's just going to happen at some point, right? I haven't had the same experience with electric. Now, I've only got one electric car. I don't plan to get any more electric cars unless something super comes out. I will tell you, if the Tesla Roadster comes out, I'll probably end up picking up one of those.
Is it supposed to have like a drop date or something?
Man, I don't know,
because
they've been saying
out.
for 10 years it's supposed to have been fucking coming out. So who knows what's going to happen there? But the specs on it look magically delicious. So I would definitely, yeah, like some Lucky Charms. So I'd definitely consider that. But it's like you said, you build a relationship with your car through, working on it, through repairing it, or like, through driving it as well. You spend a lot of time driving it, and you know how it's built up, you know how it handles and feels. And that's the only way, and that's why I love cars so much, is that the only way how you can really kind of know your car is, when you spend time driving it, each car is unique. I mean, you've been in the garage, you've seen some of the cars that are in the collection. Each car is like a different person. They're all unique in the way they drive, they function, they work, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you build a relationship by going out, kicking it, understanding how they corner, how they move, what you can and can't do. Obviously, you want to know what they can and can't do, because very important you don't do stupid things when you're driving a car, right? Because obviously you can hurt yourself or hurt somebody else very badly. So I've had nothing but positive experiences with electric, and frankly, at the end of the day, I don't dislike any car. I like, even my least favorite of all cars would be JDM. JDM stands for Japanese Domestic Manufacturer, whatever. They're like Supras and GTRs,
But
Nissan.
Supras have kind of been made to be not made, but like kind of become or been adopted like by American culture because of the Fast and Furious.
Yeah, it's
movie.
fucking stupid, bro. These kids today, unfortunately, they think that, and I'm not saying they're not fast cars. I'm not saying they're not nice cars. But if you're an American, I hope you're watching this if you're American, and you see an old school Roadrunner, old school Nova, or Chevelle, that's your heritage. It ain't some wispy ass little bullshit V6 sound like a little bitch driving down the road. I mean, I'm sorry, that's what they do. They
My
sound
truck's
terrible.
a V6.
Well, I'm sorry, bro. It is
And it's
what
a
it
Ford.
is. Now let me say it like this: if you're driving a fast car, and so trucks do fit into fast cars. I can get myself in a hole here real quick. Trucks can be fast cars, but I'm talking about more sports cars for that matter. I think of, and it's because the way I was raised. Now other people were raised differently. When I hear the sound of a V8 American Muscle, I sound like you're putting a big dick on the table at that point. When I hear the sound of a V6, it reminds me of a Porsche. Okay, they sound like shit. It sounds like a little vacuum cleaner. Oh, good, a little pee-pee here for you. So I mean, people may like it, but at the end of the day, I was raised on the V8s or above, for that matter, and I will tell you this: the V6s will never sound like a V8, so you're never going to get that same gut rumble. You know that experience you had in the Nova or the Chevelle?
Yeah.
You never feel that out of a JDM style car. You just won't. I'm not saying again they can't be fast, they don't look sexy. Some of them certainly do. They're my least favorite just because when I was growing up, I was taught American muscle first. I didn't even really think about the Euro or Japanese stuff, and then as I started to grow older, I'm like, kind of like me a Ferrari, like me a Lamborghini, like me a little bit of McLaren. I think McLaren is one of the sexiest cars alive.
It is a pretty good looking car.
Beautiful car.
You have the so do you ever go to the Suds like down in Greenwood?
Oh yeah,
Do you ever
about
take
every
one of
Saturday? Yeah,
Every Saturday you go?
almost every
Man,
Saturday. Yeah.
whenever you do go, let me know if you're going to take one of your cars.
Okay.
We'll try to swing by in the fire truck if we're working on that
Oh,
Saturday.
dude, bro.
Because what we've done before, when I worked with Steve Dillman, because he was a fireman with me, and he also raced. He was real big in the racing world on drag strips and stuff. And what he would end up doing when I worked at the 91s, he would take the engine down, but he'd spend hours. We would all spend hours detailing the engine on the outside, inside, and underneath.
See, that's awesome.
And that was an experience for me because we'd lift the cab on the truck. So the whole front cab actually lifts forward on all of our fire trucks. And so he'd lift the cab, he'd pressure wash everything underneath. He'd clean the engine, clean the frame, clean behind the tires. He'd make it all shiny. And then later that evening, we would go over to the Suds. If we didn't catch a run, which would happen.
Yep.
But if we didn't catch a run, we'd go over to the Suds. Then we'd lift the cab up. And you'd see that big 500 horsepower Cummins diesel engine
Beautiful.
with Allison transmission.
Oh.
And so you're just sitting there staring at it. And we'd have people just kind of swarm around it. And he's sitting there talking about all the parts of it, what it feels like, how they're not super fast because they've got
It's not about that.
42,000 pounds. But it's the fact that the size of the truck, the way it sounds, and it was always cool to see the passion in other people in cars.
Oh, yeah.
So if you ever go, just send me a text or something, and we'll try to bring the fire truck.
I'll start
down.
hitting you up from now on because there's a lot of kids down there, right? And these kids love fire trucks too. I love a fire truck, dude. Get me on that motherfucker. I'd love to.
I just need to know earlier in the day so we can start cleaning.
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Well, I'll let you. As long as the weather looks good, I'm like I said, seriously, about 90% of the Saturdays I'll be down there for several hours. Normally from like 12 to 6 or something. It's pretty normal. But that's one of the things that happens a lot, and I like that you just mentioned that, is that people be like, oh, why don't you have somebody detail your... I do my own detailing on my own cars. It's very rare that I will have somebody else do it or that I'll take it somewhere to have it done. And it's because I'm like, well, if I have a fishing pole, I grease the bearings, I take care of the pole myself, I thread. I don't need somebody else doing that shit for me. I mean, does it take some time too? Yeah, but I also know where the skeletons are in the car, right? So I know where it's dirty, where it's not, and so how to clean the car versus going and chunking, a couple $100 at somebody saying, hey, come clean my cars. I ain't got the time for it. I always, and still to this day, I felt like if you're gonna own something, you need to take care of it. It's like my gun collection, right? Collect guns too. I know you're a 2A guy as well. The fuck am I gonna take my gun to a gunsmith and say, hey, can you clean my gun because I can't fucking break my shit down? Nah, bro, I'll take care of all of my.
It's almost embarrassing to do because it's always in the gun community. It is highly promoted to understand how your firearm tears apart
100%.
and goes back together again, and if it's clean.
100%.
So
And
it's
similar
a
with
huge
your
deal.
car. Similar with your car. Now, I will say this: I don't claim to be a mechanic. I can't go down and break a McLaren down. I can't break a Ferrari down. Some of the older school stuff I could do some work on. There's some things I could do, but there are certain parts where I would get uncomfortable like doing because I don't claim to be a full blown mechanic. I got a lot of respect for those guys. They know what they're doing. I think mechanics get a bad rap sometimes. I also think there are bad mechanics out in the world too. Just like there are bad salespeople and
There's bad firemen,
bad
out there.
everything.
Yeah.
Right? There's a little bit of bad sampling of everything. So. But at the end of the day, I think it's really, I think it's good that you take care of your own stuff and keep it maintained. So my message to people would be, if you got a car collection or you're thinking about ever doing it, or even if you're just thinking about, I want to have a cool sports car, think of a couple things first. Think about what you like and get what you like first. That's the most important. You only live once, right? So whatever it is that you like, I don't care. It's that C8. Get your favorite color, your favorite, don't settle for some bullshit, and don't let it financially break you either. But get what you want, and then take care of that car, maintain it well. So whatever maintenances need to be done on it, certainly have it done. And I would tell this: now, cars are absolutely meant to be driven, but I wouldn't say go out and try and put 200,000 miles on the car because that's killing your investment. Because you also have to be honest with yourself too. You're investing time and money and efforts into that car. So at some point, who knows when, and maybe you decide, I'm never selling it, but at some point you're probably going to want to sell that and something else is going to come up that you may want. That's how typically a lot of car guys work. Oh my gosh, I see this and I may want this. So hey, if you got the cash for it, hey, fine, no problem. Put as many miles as you want on this. But I always tell the car guys, like, if you plan on collecting this or keeping it for a long time and you want to make a true investment out of this, you can't be putting 25, 30,000 miles a year on it unless you're planning to just sell it in 2 years and you don't mind losing that much value. So I say for collectors, keep them clean, keep them maintained, and go out and drive it, have some fun, burn some rubber on that motherfucker, but don't put 50,000 miles a year on it. It brings the value of it way down.
So I do have a question, because obviously the cars that you got there are very cool cars. I had this experience happen to me when with my ex-wife. I borrowed a buddy of mine car. And he had an Audi R8. So I said, hey, man, I really want to have a special night with my wife. This was when I was married, obviously. Can I borrow your car and take her out on a date? Because I want to kind of like treat her really well, but I also want to like kind of, she was my wife at the time. So I was like, I want to impress her. Like, I want to like have a special night for her. Like, I think it would be cool if I took her in a really nice car.
Sure.
Obviously, she really liked trucks more. Like the truck I used to have, she loved that truck because it was a Dodge 2500. Blacked out, barely an exhaust on it. Like it was loud. But I was like, I really want to treat her right, this night. And so like he's 100%, man, more than welcome. I think I drove that car more than he did.
Really?
Let's be honest. Yeah.
This is badass cars, by the way.
Yeah. And the Audi R8s, we'll get into those right after this. So we pull up to the restaurant and I park the car. I get out, I open her door up, and I'm walking with her. And this is at the time I just had gotten over my back surgery, so I still had a lot of weight on me. So I obviously wasn't looking the best, but I was dressed up for her and all that stuff. And this girl who was absolutely insanely gorgeous sees the car, saw me get out of it, and comes right up to me as I'm holding my wife and hits on me and starts talking to me.
Isn't that an awesome feeling?
Well, it was a great feeling because it was like, this girl wants to talk to me, but I know the reason why. And I blew her off. Like I was just like, oh yeah, it's a nice car. And then I can't remember the exact comment, what it was, but I was like, oh, yep, nice car. And I moved on with my wife. Do you ever experience that whenever you have one of your cars out when you're going out in town?
Oh yeah. And look at me, point the camera. I'm an ugly motherfucker right here. So, the fact that she's doing it, I know what she's doing. She sees the car and she looks at me and I'm like, look at that ugly motherfucker. But hey, I got personality. At least I'll make her laugh, But no, in all seriousness, yeah, it happens a lot. There will be women who give you the eye, and you can tell right then and there. I mean, you know what's up. You're not playing stupid. So yes, it does happen, and it happens very much more in very more specific cars. I'll give you an example. The Ferrari, the 812, the 458, the fucking McLaren. If I'm in any of the supercars, it's almost instantaneous. Guaranteed wherever I go that some chick's going to be trying to eyeball me or like, hey,
Well, I am single now. Do you mind if I borrow one of them cars?
Fucking go right ahead. Go right ahead, bro. Just make sure you disinfect that motherfucker before you get it back. Disinfect. but yeah, no, in all seriousness, man, they, There are gold diggers out in the world. We all know that. Oh yeah, 100%.
But the thing is, you gotta think about it though. Is like what a woman sees at that point is when she sees a guy who gets out of a really nice car. And I'll even talk about my truck. Like I've got a 2015 F-150. That's what I have. Nothing extravagant. It's not a high dollar vehicle, but it looks
a nice vehicle.
Thank you.
It's a very nice vehicle.
I keep it clean. I do after every week. It's actually my work truck. And then, so the guys, when guys go and mow, and I'll help them mow whenever we're short on it. At the end of the day, if they're not mowing the next day, I take it right over to the car wash. I get it washed, and then I vacuum it out. That happens 3 times a week. Yeah. So it's like, it's a lot of work, but I'm looking at everything in the cars. Now you go into it, it's a quad cab. So everything from the 2 seats up gets cleaned every single week.
Like well, where the skeletons are again, right?
So that's where the majority of the dirt and all the dust and grass lands. But I've even noticed it, like when I pull up in my nice truck, I'll even notice, like when I get out, now it doesn't happen very often, but more of like a blue collar girl would like that kind of stuff. I kind of look at it more and they're like, that's a really nice truck. But like for me, what I think about is what those types of girls see is a guy who, for one, is a wealthy guy and they can afford them the lifestyle that they want. But it's safety and security. And then it's also like he's doing well. He's obviously somebody who's disciplined and very determined on his career, and probably, maybe you don't take care of yourself. I try to take care of myself, and it's like he's put together. That's the guy I want. So it's something that's greater than what they have now, and they're going to go for it. That's what they're probably thinking too. But yeah, there are gold diggers out there as well.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you. I'm not saying all of them are, but let's be real. If I were to jump in my daily, which is a Toyota Prius, if you make fun of the Prius, you should, because it's a badass little car. But it really is. It gets great gas mileage. But anyways, and I get a lot of people making fun of the Prius. I'm like, well, and I'm not a show off. You've known me for a while now. I think I'm a fairly, and some would disagree, I think I'm a fairly humble dude. Like, I don't go try and show my shit off. Like, oh, I got this, and you'll never have that. Or you
I was
don't have
thoroughly
this.
surprised when you showed up in a Prius the first time you came over. I was like, a Prius? Like, really, a Prius? Like, I think I asked you if that was your wife's car or something.
Yeah,
I was like,
I think you probably. My nieces give me shit all the time. I go, John, are you gay? I'm like, just because I drive a Prius. Look, I in 2011, I landed in Newark, New Jersey, and I had a car rental set up at like Enterprise or whatever, and they fucking brought me out a Prius, and me and this dude's name was Todd, and this guy was like 6'7", like 320, big old motherfucker, and they brought this Prius up, and we're like, what the fuck is this? And this is kind of like when Priuses are kind of new. They were to me, I'd never seen one. The first thing we were amazed by is there was no sound, but the car was on. We're like, what the fuck kind of magic is this? It was just really odd. And then as we start driving, and we drove it all over the whole state because we had to do some of these upgrades to these products that we had on the field. We noticed that the gas mileage, we were getting like 53 miles a gallon, and that was unfucking heard of, man. And so we're like, wow. And then I knew right then after driving that car, I'm like, I'm gonna have me one of these, because I was driving about 60 miles a day back and forth to work. So that's a lot of miles for a car that gets, let's just say we'll get between 50 and 60 miles a gallon. That was pretty damn good. So I got me a 2011, bought a new one. Then it may have been 2012, and then 2018 bought a brand new one, and I'm pretty close to thinking I'm going to buy another brand new one, turn my old one in, because I've never had.
The new ones actually look pretty good.
They're a lot faster too,
What?
But they do look pretty. They do look
Yeah,
pretty sexy, and they're in the. I think you get them between the 28 and 40 range, roughly somewhere in there. But yeah, at the end of the day, here's what's funny. Back to your point about the women and stuff, though, is that I pull up in the Prius. I can get some looks every now and then, just because, hey, a woman may like the way I look, particularly. And like you said, maybe it doesn't happen a lot. Maybe sometimes it does. Or maybe she's a blue-collar girl. That's the woman I would choose. If I pull up in a Prius and she's still giving me the look and giving me the eye, and I don't care if she wasn't as good as looking at as I pull up in the McLaren and there's as we guys would say, a 10 out of 10, I wouldn't take her. I wouldn't even consider it. Because I already know in the back of my mind that if I pull up my Prius, you probably wouldn't even give me the time of day. And guess what? You ain't getting what I got. And I'm just being straight up. So I that's why actually part of the reason I like driving my Prius. And I've got a truck too. I got a 2007 Dodge Ram. But I can tell if it's real or not pretty quickly. Plus, I've been in sales for 22 years, bro. So I can tell if she's just kind of full of shit or not. And, a lot of guys. Unfortunately, we when it comes to women, we feast with our eyes first.
Yes.
Instead of like trying to figure out about the girl, we're like, oh my God, I get it, she's hot. But is there anything up there that clicks with you? You know what I mean? Because you got to find somebody that clicks with you, and that is what I've learned. I would say over my 40 years of existence on this planet is that is number one. And if I could go back and teach myself anything again, it's not just looks. It is not. It really isn't. It is like, do you match intellectually? Are you guys into the same type of things? You don't have to be in the same type of everything, but how is your chemistry just chilling, just having conversation and stuff? Can you even stand talking to her? Can she stand talking to you, for that matter?
That's interesting, because I had gone on a date in the last month or so, and the girl was insanely attractive. She was very good looking, and I'm like, yeah, she's meeting all my all the things that I enjoy looking at, the physical attributes that I like looking at. But we started talking to each other, and I'm realizing oh my God, you are annoying to me.
Yeah.
And it wasn't anything against her. It's just our personalities just did not match at all. Yep. And it went from being really attracted to her to just not feeling it. It's not happening. But that's why you want to get to know somebody, and that's also why. You look at all these guys who are insanely wealthy and have all these nice cars and these women all around them. But do they have actual value in a personal relationship in their life with those women?
Yeah.
And that's the part where I'm trying to find right now. Is do I have that personal attraction to that person or to that woman that is to me?
Well, take no, the evidence is always in like what's out there. So look at yourself, look at some things right now. Elon Musk. I mean, he's got what, 10 different children or something. He's had like I don't know how many different fucking women. I mean, let's say some of those women wanted to be with him for his money, and maybe some of them truly didn't. You look at what's his name? Amazon, Jeff Bezos. Yeah, I mean, he just made the richest woman in the world, I think, by divorcing his wife. I mean, let's be honest. She took half of his shit. Well, I mean, that's a whole nother conversation on whether that should be able to occur or not. But at the end of the day, A, it did, and B, I mean, that it fell apart. Why? Who knows? Now he's with some different chick that seems to make him happy. I'm sure he's got her tied up in a fucking prenuptial agreement you wouldn't be able to get out no matter what. And then here's a flip side of that coin. You ever seen Mark Zuckerberg's wife?
Yeah, she's Asian.
She's Asian, and I mean, you know what? So to me, like the chicks that these dudes be pulling after I'll call it their normal like wife or their normal like relationship, they try and like shooting way up. Zuckerberg has, to me, like is like probably the most down to earth one of them all, because I mean, I'm not saying that his wife is bad looking, but she's like a normal looking lady. She isn't like some 20 out of whatever X model. She's a beautiful woman. She's nice, but she doesn't look like she'd be a billionaire's wife. I think that sounds terrible for me to even say it, but I'm being real. This is dude's talk.
I mean, he's for one, he's a robot for one.
Like, he may be.
The way he operates and looks and talks to people, he looks like a robot. But he started in jiu-jitsu, and I think he's like a blue belt now.
Oh, I know. Yeah,
he's done.
He's gonna beat the shit out of Musk. Unless
Musk trains every day, all day long.
Well, I think unless Musk uses his walrus tactic, which is to lay his fat ass on top of him, and if that happens, I'm sorry, I don't care how strong Zuck is or what he knows. I mean, you get a dude who's 2 or 3 times your size land on top of you. I mean, you just
well, I mean, to be honest, like, so I've been doing jiu-jitsu, and I've been kind of laxed on going, and I wish I went a lot more often. But I had poison ivy for a while, so I couldn't go in because it'd get worse. But when I get back into it, I've rolled with guys that I was twice their size, and they're still kicking my ass.
Okay.
But then again, it's like I've got to move more.
Right.
Like I've got to move to like get that position for them. But I've been to where like I've just pressure choked somebody, and or just basically just lay on their chest, and then they're just struggling to breathe because of their size.
Because you're pure weight on top of them.
Just the weight on top of them.
Well, I mean, think about that too for a second. Is you're talking about another thing there, which is skill set.
Yes.
Right. So I mean, how much do you weigh as an example?
I think right now I'm about 250.
250. Okay, so I'm 200. So you got a 50-pound advantage on me. Now, if we were to roll around and BJJ, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I mean, first of all, you had the experience. I wouldn't, but let's flip it around. Let's say I had some experience and you didn't. Even with your 50 pounds, I could probably find a way to try and submit
100%.
you pretty fucking quickly. But if you really flip it around and you were able to get me in an awkward position with your weight, I mean, like you said, just your weight alone can do a lot of sheer damage, because I mean that's mass, and mass has got to account for something. So yeah, I think, and that's why my son, he just started karate, which is cool. He loves it, but I was really wanting him to start with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, because that wrestling and stuff is much more active, in my opinion, than karate. And I'm not saying karate's bad. I think karate's cool as shit. But man, there's something about rolling around, learning the different positions, how to get somebody's arm and an arm bar or whatever. It's
super useful.
Oh, it really
is
extremely
useful. I know for me, like I'm very, very still new and green into it. Like I'm still a white belt and everything. But I walk into a room, and I've rolled with like brown belts, blue belts, and purple belts, and they all have taken it easy on me too. Like they take it easy on me, but I still get that challenge.
Yeah.
But I walk into a room, and most of the people in there probably have never done any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like knowing like I could handle my own. Plus, with the 6 years of boxing that I did, I feel pretty comfortable.
Yeah.
But it's like I walk into a room and I know that I have a good shot. I have a very good shot to winning, or at least getting out of a situation if I'm put in one.
Yep.
Now, am I ever instigating anything? No. If I have a chance to fight somebody, I'm probably going to talk my way out of it, because I don't want to do it, because I don't want to get in trouble at work, because it's not worth the energy. Like I want to work out tomorrow. I don't want to be destroyed for tomorrow.
Yeah.
So like I'd rather just not. But if I'm in a situation where I can't leave or I can't do any of that kind of stuff, yeah, I know
for yourself.
I know that I'll be fine.
Yep.
For myself.
Yep.
But so back to cars real quick.
Sure.
What is your most favorite car in the world, and why? Old and new.
Old and new. Okay. So let's start with old. And are you asking in the collection or just in general?
Let's do both.
Okay. So if you're saying which one in the collection, I would say the 1970 Roadrunner. It's all original, all matching numbers. It is a fantastic piece. It's just as it was as it came out in 1970. So, I mean, to have that is a piece of our American heritage. It's our history. And so that's my favorite car, old school car in the collection by default. Plus, I love that Sublime color. It's just fucking sexy.
It's pretty cool.
Something about it, I
It's
think, it's
pretty
just
cool.
it's just beautiful. There's a Cuda in the collection as well, but I would tell you this: if I could snap my fingers and make any other old car just kind of appear, a Chevelle would be very high on that list. But if we're talking money wasn't a thing, an object, it would be a 1970 Cuda with a Hemi in it, all original, all matching numbers. And I seen one sell down at Mecum this year for $975,000. If it gives you an idea, right?
I was gonna guess maybe like 90,000 or
No.
100,000.
Now I'm sure you could find one between 2 and 6. I mean, this was a very high end one, but I mean, yeah, they're expensive as all get out now. But they're just that was like so two things. Number one, that's like my dad. You know my dad.
Yeah.
We've been into cars together for a long period of time. Yes, my dad is involved with the car collection. It's very obvious, man. I mean, my dad have been into cars since I've been since he was the person who got me into cars, right? So we do a lot of different things in the collection together. Like we'll figure out like, oh, let's do this to this car, or hey, maybe we don't want to touch this one, or whatever. And we both have different ideas. I'm more new school. He's more old school. So we can really meet in the middle on ideas and things that we like to do. But with the Cuda, first of all, he was the one who like he had a Cuda. That was a 440, I believe. It didn't have a Hemi in it, but he also got me into this movie. If you ever get a chance, go watch it. I like horror, not horror movies, right? So like the Freddy Krueger, Jason, shit like that. But there's a movie out there called Phantasm. And maybe if you can, you pop a picture up right now. Bing! And on the cover of this movie, you're going to see it's a original 1970, I believe it is, Hemi Cuda. And it's just fucking badass. All black. Just sexy as all get out. I wish I could have that car from Phantasm. Like, that is like my ideal car. Like, right there. Just perfect, beautiful. Now, if we go to new school stuff, and if I could pick between new school and old school, I would honestly choose old school first. Because you can't get to the new school without the old school. So I like that old school. Even though I said a minute ago I'm more new school than my dad, but I still believe in the heritage first before just going out and buying yourself a Ferrari. Where did that Ferrari come from? It came from the old school, and I like our old school American heritage. But so for the newer stuff, I would tell you right now, McLaren is my dream car, but the car that stole my heart is the Ferrari 812 Superfast. It sounds and rides like an F1 car. The way it rolls, the way when the valves open up, oh my God. If you're a person who loves a car, I will tell you this. If you love F1, if you love the sound of just a car, especially being a V12, so this has got 4 more cylinders than your V8. I mean, she's sexy as fuck. When you kick her down, I mean, it's just a totally different feel and sound than American Muscle. I mean, you're opening this car up from 40 to 100 plus. I mean, that's how you stretch her legs. It's not, 0 to 110. This thing, you're going to open it up a little bit further. Man, is it just beautiful. So I would tell anybody out there, if you're interested in feeling something different, try it. Ferrari 812 Superfast. Go rent one. If you're in Vegas, go rent one. You can go rent one, take them out to the track for that matter.
Can you really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's one of the complaints I get all the time on my stream is, oh, your whole car collection is a fucking rental. I'm like, where do you rent this type of shit at? And then in some of the big cities, you can actually rent out some of the new stuff. Certainly not some of the old school stuff.
That is cool.
But yeah, I mean, I don't care if it was $1,500 a day to take it out the track. It would be worth it for one day just to feel it, because I'm telling you, it is unlike anything that I ever felt or heard. Because when you're pushing that thing, when you're at 60 miles an hour, you kick this down, I'm gonna take you for a drive, and you're gonna see what I'm saying.
I'll take.
Man, bro, your heart just opens up. It's like just this love, this euphoria. I don't know how to explain it. It's just fantastic because that sound's there. So unlike the Tesla Plaid, that sound's there. The looks, the car is super sexy.
It is a really good looking car.
True GT car.
Really good looking car.
True GT.
So European cars, man, I don't know what it is, but they sound really clean.
They are.
And they sound professional to me.
They are. Yeah.
Like I'm a fan of Ferrari cars, and obviously, right now I'll never be able to afford one.
That's not true.
Yeah, right now I can't. But at some point in my life, I'm hoping to at least be able to obtain one for a little bit. But the way they sound crisp. They sound tuned. They sound professional. Like when I see somebody driving around, like there's some people in Center Grove that have one that drive around a red one. There's some dude drives around a red one. I think it's a gorgeous red color.
I know that guy.
Yeah. Oh well,
I do.
I've seen that. Tell him I said it's a very nice car next time you see him.
I will.
But every time I've heard it, I'm like, it just sounds like I expect him to be like some professional businessman. He gets out and he's got a suit on, and I'm like, that to me screams professional.
Sure.
That's every time I hear or see a Ferrari, every single time. I don't know what your impression is. I mean, obviously you got two of them, but I don't know what your impression is on that. But I just love the way some of the European cars sound.
I mean, from a sound perspective, they all kind of, once again, have their own little personalities and sound different. As an example, American muscle versus Euro muscle. I'm not going to say Euro muscle, Euro exotic, because that's
I was
more.
going to say, do they even have?
Not
I've just
really.
never heard it.
It's not. No, it's more exotic. So you got McLaren out of England, you got Ferrari out of Italy, and of course Lamborghini out of Italy. And then they say, well, you left out Aston Martin and this and that. Well, I'm just going to those three for now. But traditional Lamborghinis, as an example, they're V10s, like Huracan or something like that, and they got a really unique sound to them. And then there are different, there are different types of Lamborghinis, just like there's different types of Ferraris, just like there's different types of McLarens. So I would tell you this: it depends on. It's all subjective, fortunately or unfortunately. So I would say Ferrari has probably the most classy style of cars, in my opinion. That's what when I look at that, I think of classy. They emanate a little snobbishness too, I think, from them.
I can see that.
That's just my personal
Well,
opinion.
you're not allowed to do anything to it, right?
You're not supposed to, but you can.
Oh, you can. Okay.
I mean, yeah. I mean, if you do too much to the engine, they can come after you, and they've come after like Justin Bieber and shit for doing stuff to his engine.
Well, like Whistling Diesel bought a Ferrari and took it off roading.
Yeah.
And he was getting letters from, I think he was getting letters from Ferrari, like, you really need to stop this. Like,
yeah, it wouldn't surprise me, but on mine, there's some different rims and stuff like that. The whole engine bay is carbon fiber and blah blah blah. It's been up there several times. They never say shit, and as long as you don't go doing too much to it, I don't think they're going to say anything. But they can and they will. But back to the original, so then Lamborghini. I think Lamborghini is more of, I don't even know how to say it right, but I'm going to say more of the chill dude, blue collar type guy who.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Who's got he's got money, obviously. If you got a Lamborghini, you got money. And who, is not as snobbish, if you will, or not snobby. More like a Ferrari guy is kind of like, I don't know. I felt like a lot of the Ferrari salesmen in the past were kind of snobbish in the way they acted, versus the Lamborghini guys like, hey man, I could go kick back a couple beers with you right now, give two fucks, And then you got McLaren, which I kind of feel like McLaren is a little snobbish as well in the way they work. That doesn't mean they don't have badass cars, but their cars, the look, the feel to it is more of a true. To me, McLaren has the true supercar. They look they look like it. They don't sound like it. I think the best sounding out of the three, again, it depends on what type of car you're actually looking at, but I'd say by default, Lamborghinis sound the best. I love the 812 super fast. It's the V12. It's sexy, but those V10s they just sound, in my opinion, they sound so great. McLarens don't really sound that great, even if you put an exhaust kit on them, because most of the time they're turboed. And when you turbocharge a car, basically that blanks out the exhaust system. It doesn't completely, it just makes them sound less. But you get the little psst, little wispy induction sounds from the turbo, which is badass. But you lose a lot of the sound of the engine by turboing a car. A lot of dudes like to supercharge their American muscle, because if you've heard the supercharger on cars like that whistle sound, but you still get the beefiness of
what
the
creates
engine.
the winding sound? Because I'll hear like in some promotional videos and stuff like that, like on YouTube or like TikTok, I hear I'll see a Dodge Challenger or a Dodge Charger with it.
That's a supercharger.
That's a
winding
supercharger.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
And that thing sounds so cool.
Oh, they always do, man.
It makes me smile whenever I hear it.
Well, that's because it really, and as it should. There's your American heritage stepping through for
it's
you
like,
right there.
wow, wow, wow. And I'm like, oh my gosh, whatever it's doing, that's awesome.
Yeah, so you got the sound of the supercharger, which is that kind of whistling Dixie sound, but because you've supercharged your V8, the sound of the V8 is still there, so it sounds like you got the meat and potato sound there, and then you add that whistle on top of it, and they're just fucking sexy. Again, that's why I like American Muscle, because if you don't supercharge it and you just have the V8, I mean V8s sound good in general. Again, going back to the kind of JDM thing, the Japanese products is that they just don't sound as good. There's just, I mean, you can do whatever you want, but they just don't sound as good at the end of the day. My personal opinion. Now, some people obviously like those. But for the Euro cars, now, let me tell you this. One of the things that the Euro cars have done very well, and I'll say whether you're McLaren, Ferrari, or Lamborghini, is that they have put the engine in the proper mounted spot. Mm-hmm. So,
Yes,
which
I agree with
is,
that.
if there's any car guys out here watching this, it really should be over the rear axle. I mean, right there, because that's where weight distribution. That's why. So, in an American car, when they plant that engine in the front and then you kick it, that's why you always get squirrely, because you need weight over the back of that to kind of hold it in place. And I can tell you right now from experience, driving a McLaren or driving a Lamborghini or a Porsche for that matter, they don't heavily break loose. They don't break loose and get all fishy all the time, because, I mean, I'm saying stock. I'm sure, you can modify them to make them break loose. But for the most part, they pretty much stick to the street, hunch down, they're gone. That 812, and you've seen it before, that's a front-mounted engine. They'll say, well, it's really mid-mount, but to me, it's really a front-mounted engine. It breaks loose frequently.
So when I drove my friend's R8, it's a rear-mounted engine. And so
It's a V10.
it was, yes. And it was, I felt like I was stuck to the road.
Yeah.
And I felt like there's nothing I can do to break this thing out. And I remember getting onto the highway. But before we got to there, I called him. Was like, "Do you mind if I punch it?" And it was a stick shift too. And I was comfortable driving stick shifts. I still am.
Yep.
And I was like, "You mind if I punch it before we go?" He was like, "Dude, I want to see what it does." And I was like, "All right, let's go."
Awesome.
So we get to the on ramp. And I remember I was looking and I was like, all right, there's no cars coming. I could see no cars. And I just go. And it wasn't like that. It was actually more of a deeper rumble sound, which was really cool to me. And then so as we're going, I'm switching into gears. I'm going on. I get merged onto the highway and I'm still going and I'm punching it. I'm like, well, this thing feels good enough to where I feel comfortable going further with this. And I've been on dirt bikes to where you get the death wobble.
Yeah.
And I've been on dirt, like really light, fine dirt where you could feel your back end starting to kind of spin, or on sand or something. So it's like, I feel good doing this. So I switched it again and I switched it into fifth, and I'm still continuing. I'm like, I should probably slow down. At this point, because I was like, okay, this
Keeps feeling good. That's a problem.
Yeah, I'm like, this is nice.
This is dangerous, because you know what? If it keeps feeling good, that means you're comfortable in it and you can just keep going, right? Yeah. And that's the danger part, is that all of a sudden you're 160, 170 and you don't even feel like it.
Yeah, I'm not going to say what speed I was at, but yeah,
That's
it
okay.
was very good, and I felt safe in it. I feel comfortable. I don't feel like the car's turning a little bit. Like if you're driving a truck and trailer and you put all your load in the rear of the trailer, when you're driving, that trailer is going to start swaying 40, 50 miles an hour. You're going to start, you don't feel good doing that. But if you place it properly, you can go 80, 90, 100, 110 miles an hour if your truck will let you do it.
Yeah.
And you feel good because the weight's proper.
Yep.
So the same thing with a car. It's
some of the rules I tell the younger kids too, because look, one of the things I was really happy that my dad did for me, and thank God he's still here, is he took me out when I was 15 and a stick shift and showed me how to drive. When I say he showed me how to drive, I mean he took me out punching the son of a bitch and shown because he knew what I was going to do anyways. Yeah. And that was a good thing and that's always a great thing about having dad in your life there. Yeah. And why I think it's important to have both family units there, so mom and dad, is because mom's going to teach things, dad's going to teach things. Dad knew that I'm going to take a car out and I'm going to start speeding, I'm going to kick it down, so he's like, well, at least let me train a little fucker, so he knows so he knows what he's doing. So I'm going to do the same thing to my son so he understands. So he took me out, showed me how to drive a stick, showed me when and where to kick it. And my things is always the same to the young men out there is, hey, if you're new into cars, do this before you ever punch your car. Make sure the road is straight. Make sure you got a flat road. Make sure there's not a lot of gravel or bullshit and junk on the road, because that's going to affect you. And certainly make sure you're safe and you know the road. And make sure your tires are in good condition. Those are the kind of the keys right there, because if any one of those are off, you can be in a serious fucking predicament very, very quickly, and nobody wants that.
One of the biggest things that my dad my dad's taught me a ton of stuff. He doesn't understand that, but he's taught me a ton of stuff. But one of the biggest things that he taught me was how to drive a truck and trailer. And I've been doing it since I was 16 years old. I mean, really 15, but like 16 years old.
Yep.
I've been driving truck and trailers for, I'm 30 now. So for 14, 15 years, I'm very comfortable driving almost any trailer you got, even a 6-foot trailer. And the biggest thing is it's harder to drive or back up. It's harder to back up a 6-foot trailer than it is a 30-foot trailer.
Sure.
Reason why is because of that short wheelbase, and you could get it anywhere. Well, we started out with a 6-foot trailer, so I had to learn pretty early on how to back up a 6-foot trailer. Now, the best way to do it, unhitch it from the truck and walk it back yourself. That's the best way to
figure it out real fucking quick, won't you?
Yeah, you'll figure it out real quick. Because for the longest time, I was just like, God bless, and then going back and forth. Then you learn to finesse, you learn to barely turn the wheel. But like in the beginning, I was just like, screw it. I just unhook it and just pick it up and just drag it. And it's light enough. It's probably like 100 pounds probably.
Sure.
But now I've got my 20-footer. My dad's got the 24-footer, and it's like, this is so easy to drive. And so then I'll go out working with other guys, and they'll make the comment like, I don't even know how to drive a truck trailer. And I feel so blessed that my dad got us into the work that we're in.
Yep.
And then I'm like I just couldn't imagine not knowing how to do it.
Yeah.
And it's nothing on them. It's just they've never been around it. So I always try to do my best to like, hey, this is what you do here. This is what you do here. Hey, swing and it really has helped me succeed and further my driving career at the fire department, because hopping in a fire truck, to me, it's like driving a truck, like a regular pickup truck.
Sure.
And when I jump in a fire truck,
Would you get the experience, I would imagine.
it's the experience of it. And so then I get in a fire truck and I feel comfortable in it. I'm like, I know I can fit there. I know I can't fit there.
Right.
And like, you'd be even surprised, like following other great drivers in the fire service, like Justin Laraway, phenomenal fire truck driver.
Yep.
Following him on the highway going 50 miles an hour on the shoulder of a road on a packed highway where there's cars sitting right on the line. And I know that he can do it. I can do it.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm following right behind him. And it's like, thank God my dad taught me how to drive in truck and trailers. I'm going 50 miles an hour, like getting close to other people's mirrors and stuff.
Yeah.
And it was just, that was the moment for me. It's like, I'm super blessed, man.
Yeah.
It's great to have. It's great. I feel horrible for those who don't have a father figure.
Yeah.
But you need to find one. There's tons of guys out there that would be.
And guys are willing to teach us.
Yes.
Most dudes are by default like wanting to teach somebody the things that they know. I'd say there's not a lot of dudes I've met in my life who weren't willing to teach. As long as you're humble, I say, hey man, I don't know how this works. You show me how. Oh yeah, absolutely. So, and that's a cool thing. Can we take a little break here for?
Sure. What were we talking about?
Trailers, backing up trailers was the last thing we had. How you were thankful for your dad and teaching you how to back up trailers.
Perfect. So moving on from trailers and all that kind of stuff, and how it helped me out in the fire department and cars and all that. I want to talk about your journey in finding your faith towards God. Because you were an atheist, agnostic, or whichever, but going from there to now a man in faith for Christ. So I want to hear that journey of yours.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to start off with the bad, if that's okay, and then work the way towards it. So I'm 40 years old. My family, my mom and dad, I would say I came from a Christian family, but we weren't really practicing. They weren't really practicing Christians. It was just the beliefs in general. Grew up believing in really in that if there was a God, there was one God, and so kind of again more towards the Christian path. But as I started getting older, I started trying to understand, a little bit more in depth as I could, and I just questioned everything. So I would say at that point I turned agnostic. Like I didn't know what to really believe in, but I always kind of felt like having more than one God was weird. I didn't think that was ever true, but I didn't know. It was weird me growing up as a child because I never really had a lot of faith per se. And then bad experiences when I went into a church a couple times. I never really felt welcomed. I always felt like people, I don't know, maybe it was paranoia, who knows, maybe it's just me, but I always felt like people were judging me. I didn't have the nicest shirt on or whatever. I mean, when I was growing up, pardon me, my family didn't have a lot of money and stuff. So, I didn't feel very welcome in the church ever. And I don't blame that on God or anybody. I blame that more towards the people. Unfortunately, people are supposed to make you feel welcome into the church. And again, it could just be me. So I can't say I blame the people, but I mean, I didn't feel welcome. Maybe I just felt odd. As you're growing up as a teenager, you have different feelings. You're just weird. You're trying to find out who you are. So I'd say in my 20s, as I started traveling the world and started seeing things, I've seen a lot of different religions, and the one I got closest to was Buddhism. And my ex-wife, she was a practicing Buddhist. Her parents were Buddhists, and I started getting into that. And a lot of what they talk about in Buddhism is peace, and trying to find happiness and making other people happiness. And there's a lot of good Buddhist people out there in the world. That's why, like, one of my main questions was, well, wait, how can all these Buddhists who I think are good people and who don't typically start wars, things like that, how would they be condemned to hell? So I just had questions that were really never answered. And I prayed to the Buddha. I was over there in Taiwan. I went to a lot of the temples, burned the money and things like this. There's a lot
Burn the money?
Yeah, they have some fake money you burn for the afterlife. And so if somebody passes, you burn things for them. Like, let's say, Bob passed tomorrow and he liked his Corvette, so I'd make him a paper Corvette and burn it. So
you just burn his Corvette?
Burn his Corvette so he can have it in the afterlife. But there's a lot of things that they did. And so, after the Buddhists, I kind of turned into, well, you know what? There's no God. I don't know. I don't even know why that happened. I went down the path of there's no God. There can't be a God. And my reasoning was, well, hey, think about it. Probably the reason why all this happened in the first place was when man first killed a deer. Where did they think the deer's soul went? Like, where did the deer go? And then, mom passed away. Well, where did mom's soul go? How do you explain that? Well, you come up with this great, fabulous story of God and how he did all these things to make you not fear what you don't know. So that was always my rationale. And like I said, I did 39 years worth of work pushing people away from God, which now today I obviously feel like I've got a lot of catching up to do, a lot of work to do to tell people that no, there is. It's just like, bringing the Tesla Plaid back up for a second. How do you think that car got built? Well, look at what's around us. Look at what you can see through a telescope. How do you think all that got built? You think it's really just a pile of dust that came out of nowhere? Mm-hmm. I mean, knowing what I know today.
That you just brought something up. I think that's the reason why I got to put this in here. I have to say something.
Yeah.
Because I screenshotted it.
Say it.
It was Joe Rogan posted this. And it was new research puts age of universe at 26.7 billion years, nearly twice as old as what they previously believed. Mm-hmm. So you're telling me all of the research and science and the things that they say that they know, they just admitted they were wrong. Right. And they were not just wrong about 1 or 2 billion, twice as much as they were wrong. And you're going to sit here and say that there's no God? No. It's like, that to me is just like, it's proving this book has been right more than it has ever been wrong. So that's interesting that you brought that up. So yeah, sorry.
No, that's great because there's so many correlations in the Bible, things that correlate to each other that have come to pass that people don't realize. If you really do your studies on it, you're going to see very quickly that, wow, how is this said? Like, well, it never said about the Old Testament, Jesus, actually, yeah, it does. It talks in the Old Testament about, the Son of God.
Talks about how to disinfect and clean from disease.
Yeah.
I mean, before that was ever any type of scientific study that was done on disease, microorganisms and stuff like that, it talks about like cleaning and the reason why it is important to clean to not cause infection. It's like, so that was done. Yes. So sorry to interrupt you.
No, 100%. And like I said, there's so many correlations, and that was the one that I kind of first, started learning about. So, which was correlating of, okay, they talk about in the Old Testament, the Son of God coming eventually, who's going to bear the sins of man, and and that came to pass. And then it talks about the future, what's going to happen in the future, and the bowls being poured out, and et cetera, et cetera. I mean, there's just so many things that some things have yet to come to pass, and some things will. And what we have a hard time, I think, as humans doing is with time, because we're of a finite time here on this earth. I thought one of the things that was interesting in the Bible that it talked about was how people used to live a lot longer. No, and then they believed in the canopy surrounding the earth. And if you ever heard of, I think it's called a bariatric chamber, maybe not, I'm not using the word right, but it's basically an oxygen chamber where you can go in And I don't know if you heard about the little girl in Texas who fell down the hole. She fell down this pipe, and she was like, I think she was like 4 or 5 years old. I could have the age a little off. You can Google it. But her leg went completely black from being stuck in this hole. I mean, these men came in and dug, trying to get her out. And I think she was in there for a couple days. Well, her leg was up beside her, beside her shoulder. And anyways, long story short is it went completely black. And one of the doctors was like, no, let's just go ahead and chop off the leg. And, this other guy's like, hold on, before we start chopping stuff off, let's put her in I think it's called a hyperbaric chamber.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, and so they put her in the hyperbaric chamber, and actually she ended up just losing her pinky toe because the oxygen levels, they pumped it way up. And so the point is that the earth used to be a lot different than it was today, so lifespans could have been significantly a lot longer. I mean, they talk about
the size of animals as well, and plant life too.
100%, 100%. And so all the things down to finding what is it, Noah's Ark, and is it Noah's Ark, the boat? I'm sorry, I can't remember.
Yeah,
Noah's Ark. But finding those like pieces of the puzzle and being able to say, well,
and then finding the burnt stone. Recently, they had found the burnt stone that was set on fire.
And the Dead Sea Scrolls were another one. It's like all these things.
I got to see those in person.
Did you really?
Let me tell you real quick. So my mom. So growing up, my parents obviously forced us to go to church all the time.
Sure.
I'm glad they did. I'm glad I had that experience. But mom was like, the Dead Sea Scrolls are here. We're going to go see them. I'm like, cool, whatever. And she's like, no, this is like
life-changing.
This is insane. So I was so lucky to see them, just to see anything that old in person, just to see it there is cool. To see them have to remove the glass case that protected it and have a guy with white gloves on and moving pages over, seeing history being turned over and over from people that wrote that a couple thousand years ago.
It's amazing.
Was like, I remember everybody just corralled around to watch them just turn the pages. And I don't even know why they were doing it. I think I was like 16 years old. But I got to see the Dead Sea Scrolls in person and watch the pages move in person. And the way those were found, I think it was some shepherd's boy or something was walking around and found a cave, and then he went in the cave, found these vases. Some of them were crushed, some of them weren't. And then he looked inside, and that's where the scrolls were. He just kind of grabs them and just takes off. But yeah, so sorry to interrupt.
No, changes a lot of things with those findings, but I was having some problems with my fiance, and we had tried counseling. One of the things in counseling is you focus on you. You focus on yourself, right? I'll fix your problem, and it's not about serving the other person. Well, the Bible teaches the opposite. You don't just focus on you. You focus on the other person and how you treat them.
Especially your wife.
Yeah, especially your wife, right? You treat her a certain way, and she's supposed to in return treat you a certain way. So it's less about yourself and stop worrying about yourself, and more about how do I make sure she feels like she loves, because then that gets reciprocated. And that's, I think, by the default meaning of real true love is when you really truly love something, you care about it more than you do yourself, and you want to make it happier than you do yourself. And it's a hard one for a lot of people to get past, because if you don't know how to do that, or you don't know how to execute upon that, you're always thinking about, oh, this person did that to me, and this happened to me, and me. And if you sit down and think about how many times you say I and me, especially in your arguments or fights, well, you did this to me, and you shouldn't have done. It's like the saying in the Bible is, you're focusing on the stick in her eye when there's a big log sitting in your own eye, right? And it's like that is
the
totally
speck in her eye.
The speck in her eye.
There's a log in yours.
100%. Yeah, thank you. Well, I can't quote everything, but I've got the
only reason why is because I've had to repeat it to myself so many times, because I did that for the longest time, and I still do from time to time. It's a constant learning curve.
Oh, it is. And so, anyways, after having a lot of problems, me and her, we ended up seeing this counselor who was more along the lines of Christ, and that's what he did, is he taught. Now, I was totally at that point, I'll say agnostic, completely, 100%, maybe even rocking the atheist at that point. And he kept coming over every Sunday, and we would have conversation for an hour or two, and this went on for weeks and weeks. And I'm surprised the man didn't give up on me, because the amount of times I questioned him, never threw him out of the house or anything, but just not attacking him, but just saying, I don't even know how you can say this word. And he just point to Scripture every time. He's going right to Scripture to answer my questions. It's coming right from the book. I'm like, it's amazing, because every question I had, there's an answer for it in the book. And so that led me to go down, how is all these answers in here that I never knew about? All this stuff is right here in front of me, and I never have taken the time. And so I was sitting on my couch one day, and I will tell everybody this. There's a fantastic movie you should see. It's called The Life of Jesus Christ. It's free on YouTube. Go watch it. It'll show you the life of Jesus Christ, how it came out of the Bible. Like, it's basically word for word of the Bible, but played out. I do better with seeing visually versus than just reading pure, text all the time, which sometimes you got to do that. But this movie was a big help for me in learning things about Jesus and what he did in his time and in his life, and how his sacrifice was for all of us, basically. So, he bore all our sins. But, I remember when I found Jesus, and it's going to sound totally weird, but it is what it is. I was sitting on my couch, and this was probably now, I don't know, 8 months ago, 10 months ago, something like that.
So you're a pretty new,
Pretty new.
green Christian.
Very green, very green. But I was sitting there, and I had watched the Life of Jesus Christ, finish watching it, and it had just hit me. Like, I don't know, it just hit me like a bag of stone, man. I don't even know how to say it. Something, just like something ran straight into me, and it washed over me. Like, I don't know how to explain it. It felt like heat, but I felt totally euphoric. And I don't mean like sex or anything like that. I mean, like, I felt so happy and like just in love, like just happiness, like complete happiness, that I think that's when the Holy Spirit hit me, even though I've not been baptized, and I could be wrong. But in understanding why Jesus was here, what he did for us, and like the finally getting the understanding of how that happened. Now, I read some scripture as well, and Doug, the gentleman who was teaching us, kept coming over and kept teaching. But I remember sitting on that couch, and it washed over me. And I remember I was crying, but I wasn't crying upset. I was so happy that, I just felt like something washed over me completely. And man, I sat on that couch for like, I don't know, it's probably 15 or 20 minutes, just tears coming down my eyes, and the most happiest moment in my life, feeling like I had found something that I knew was always there but was lost. It's almost bringing tears to my eyes right now, to be honest with you, because it was such a feeling of love, compassion, and like, I wish everybody could find this feeling, and I hope they do. It's there for you. It's a free gift. You have to accept it. And it really has helped us out in our relationship. Now, we're not perfect, and we maybe never will be perfect, and that's not the name of the game, though. But when I found what I considered the Holy Spirit, when I truly found Jesus, and I'm still learning. I'm not saying I'm an expert by any means, because I'm not, but I know what I felt, and what I felt was real, and I still feel it, to this day inside me. And I know what that did for me, and there goes the words me and I and stuff, but that allowed for me to focus on the other people in my life, which wasn't really necessarily about me per se. It was like, how much time did I spend thinking about what had been done to me, or what I didn't get, or what me didn't get, versus let me focus on my son more. Let me focus on her needs more, instead of just worrying about me. And let me focus on what the teachings say I should be doing versus what am I actually doing in real life. And so when I found Jesus sitting on my couch, as weird as it sounds, I'm sitting there just washed out in tears just by myself. And I wasn't like pouting, crying. It was just coming down in streams of happiness. It was the best feeling I've ever felt in my life. And I'll never forget it, when I was sitting on that couch. And I still, to this day, will turn on The Life of Jesus Christ just to go back through it, because I like watching versus reading. Mm-hmm. And I still go through and read some scripture and stuff, and quite a bit of it, actually. But I remember finding that, and it's totally changed my life since I believe I found Jesus. And now I try talking to people. I know how I didn't want to be approached as an atheist / agnostic person, or even partially Buddhist, however you want to call it. I didn't want it to be forced upon me. And I didn't want the first thing to be talked about was hellfire and brimstone. Oh, I'm going to hell for this. I'm going to hell for that. No, that's not the right way to approach those, because I would have been like, get off my property. I don't want to hear about this. Don't come up here and start preaching to me like that. It was more of a message of love, and this free gift is yours if you just accept it, and you can have everlasting life. You can be with something that is the most important thing in your life, and it's always been there for you. It's always there for you. You just have to accept it. And then, you know what? There are rules you have to play by, and that was one of the things that I would say Doug had taught me first, was that a lot of people think being a Christian is easy. No, it's one of the hardest things to do, because there's free will involved there. And free will is what God gave everybody to decide, okay, if you want to follow the way of the earthly, the earthly path, your free will. I'm not going to change you. That's not fair. If I were to force you to do it, it's not really free will. So that's where you have the big fights, what I consider like good versus evil. Can you really be that stout of a man to follow and then stay with those convictions, or are you going to fall off the path? Well, we all fall off the path. That's why we're all sinners, and we all forever will be. But the path is always there for you if you're willing to get back on the horse and go. And I would say keep learning every day. That's something that I'll open the Bible or read through or go find another passage. I recently just bought the original translation of the Dead Sea Scrolls because I wanted to learn more.
Really?
Yeah, I got it at home. It's a booking. I think it's like $25 on Amazon or whatever. But it breaks down exactly what the Hebrew was and exactly what the proper conversion to English. Because that's the thing. They'll all say, it's been rewritten 3 million times. Well, no, there are different variances of the Bible, but the problem is the way that a word is interpreted, right? So when it was
back in the day, so when they talk about that, as I had this talk with somebody who doesn't believe in God at all, and it was a very good discussion that we had. It was probably about 3.5 hours long. It'd be interesting to have him on for a podcast. I'd have to study so much more.
Yeah.
I'd have to study a lot to be able to prepare for that conversation. But he said it's been rewritten so many times. How do we even know what it says? I'm like, okay, so back in the original text in Hebrew, they said an ocean of people, or an ocean of men, which men is men and women, but an ocean of men. Is that an ocean? Is that water?
Yeah.
No, an ocean of men back then was deemed as a large gathering of people. So when they translate it today, it's going to say something different. And that's one of many translations that's had to happen throughout the Bible.
Yep.
And so when you have those discussions with people, it's like, and it's exactly, you're hitting the nail on the head. It was written mainly in Hebrew. And unless you read Hebrew, which I don't know anyone who reads Hebrew, unless you read Hebrew and go through it, then you'll understand it on that point. But you'd have to understand the translation from Hebrew to whatever languages that you speak.
Right.
And it's been translated the amount of times through history because of language changed.
Yep.
It's not like languages in like just different like.
A word can have 5 meanings in one language and one meaning in another.
Exactly.
Yeah, it can be very painful.
You talk about like, in Hispanic culture, like if you speak Spanish, everything is male or female. Everything, even some of the words that you say that have nothing correlating towards a man or a woman, have a male dominance and a female dominance.
Yep.
So understanding that, then writing it, then you can understand it in your language. So that's
No, that's great. So that was I mean, at a very high level, that was my finding. It was not my conversion because it was always there, and it was always there for me. It was just me truly taking the time to learn and be taught. That was the key, is I had to be taught, because I'll tell you what, the Bible isn't an easy thing to read and understand. It's really not. It's an extremely complicated documentation, in my opinion. And then, but if you've got somebody who knows how to break it down for you and get you to understand and it can answer your questions, that's always very helpful. And there's a lot of good men that want to teach, and it's there for you to find if you're wanting to really find the truth. There's something that always sticks out to me in the Bible, because I was always like, where did Jesus ever say he was God? And it's the Trinity, right? It's the Holy Spirit, the Father, and then the Son. And the thing is, he's spoken parables, right? So that confused people. Why didn't he just come out and say it? Well, there's a lot of reasons why he didn't just come out and say it. But if you look at some of the things, like the one that sticks out in my mind is in the Old Testament, when Moses, went to the burning bush, went up on top of the mountain, and basically met God, if you will. He asked the question. He said, "But Lord," and I'm not saying exactly, I'm kind of paraphrasing myself what he said. He said, "Lord, what do I tell him who sent me?" And he said, "You basically tell him that I am sent you." And I don't know if you remember that part, but when he was supposed to go back to Egypt, he'd say, "I am sent you." And what I think is interesting is again, one of these correlations that go over from the Old Testament to the New. And then in the New Testament, when Jesus was talking with Abraham's disciples, they're saying, Abraham's our father, this and that. And Jesus finally told them, hey, before Abraham was, I am. That blew my mind, because this happened, I don't know how many hundreds of years before. God was saying, what is his name? You tell him that I am sent you, basically. And then here Jesus is saying is, I am. It's an absolute correlation, absolute match, and blew my mind away. And of course, they didn't believe him because what they didn't understand is what he's trying to say is before everybody was, I am God. And that's what the correlation really is I am sent you. I am. And I just, still to this day, it just like melts my heart just thinking about that because it's like, wow, I mean, he just told you what you don't even realize. And this is the thing, a lot of these religious scholars today, and people who claim to know it the best, those are the ones that scare me the most, to be honest with you. Because when you look at back what happened to Jesus and how he was crucified, he came here to not to save the people who knew, but to save the sheep that were astray, basically. He wanted us to he is the good shepherd, right? And the people who were supposed to know and basically protect him the most were the ones who did the most damage to him. I mean, putting him up on the cross because they were worried about losing power. And then, of course, you've got the religion today, the Jewish religion, which would be like, no, he wasn't the savior or whatever. And I'm like, well, I mean, 100% matches the description of what they said was going to happen is going to happen, and it did. So it blew my mind. Plus, how would you like? I'm not dissing anybody, but I'm just saying, how would you like to be like, yeah, our savior came and we crucified him, bro? To me, that's like, holy smokes.
Well, another thing too is that when the scholars or the prophets or the pastors of the churches were saying, well, why aren't you coming to us? Mm-hmm. Why are you going to the poor people, the sick people? Does a doctor go to the healthy people or does he go to the sick?
Exactly.
He tends to the sick.
Right.
And those people were already so lost anyways, because they're exactly with the power. They wanted the notoriety of being the positions they were in.
Right.
So that's the reason why he went towards them. And then also the fact that, like, even look at the culture back then, women were considered below children.
Property.
Like they were property, and kids were killed at will just because if they were there. It was just insane how they were treated. He would talk to the women. He would talk and hug the children. Like the way he treated lepers, the way he treated poor people, homeless people, all the handicapped, like the way he treated them wasn't like a normal thing back then, which is what makes it so extraordinary to read now and try to understand.
Yeah, and showing the true mercy of God, because if you really look at the Old Testament, the original stuff, is like, I don't want to say God was harsh, but he was very, strict. Hey, you didn't do what I told you to do on the rock. You try and steal some of that. So you'll get to see the promised land, but you ain't entering it, Moses, after you've wandered for 40 extra years in the desert. So, I get that now. I never really understood that. I'm like, why is God so harsh? And then now it clicks and all makes sense. But then he sent, his son, Jesus, here's Jesus Christ, the son, right? And truth and grace. Right, truth and grace and peace in my mind as well, right? Bringing those to earth and showing how truth and grace and peace are really supposed to be, and love for that matter. And then that being able to walk on this planet and is still alive till this day, because as we know, Jesus is the only one out of all the prophets, out of anybody. There's nothing in that.
No
tomb.
one has come back from the dead.
There's nobody who's ever truly resurrected
Correct.
somebody. Correct. And by him doing that, that blew my mind. Or cured leprosy with just a touch, or cured the blind. Those things that's a lot of people say, how do you know that happened? Well, this is documented like thousands of years.
It was also even documented by people who didn't believe in him too.
Right, exactly. And when he rose, on the third day, and then I forget, it was 40 days or something like that, but over 500 eyewitnesses seen him. And so you can say, well, yeah, just his disciples made up this story. Well, think about this. Back then, they will kill you, right? They will crucify you. They will, however they decide to kill you is what they're going to do.
Yeah.
Right. So they have no skin in the game where they do. You could say it, because if they lie or if they say that Jesus is God, and what happens to them next thing you know is they're getting killed, and that's what happened to what most of his disciples is. They end up getting crucified and whatnot. So why would these people do that? Most people would save their own skin.
So I had to look it up again to make sure I was getting it right, though. But Peter, when he was sentenced to be crucified,
upside down,
he goes, I don't even deserve to be crucified the same way Jesus Christ was.
Right.
Crucify me upside down.
Yeah.
And he was crucified upside down.
Yeah. Now think about that. What does that say about that? How much he believed to be able to say, hey, make it even worse than what it was, is like, so that can tell you right there that, wow, these people are going to be killed, and they're just like, kill me. because I seen what I seen. I know what I know, and I have seen God. And I love when Jesus, was it the doubting Thomas, I think it was, where he said,
I think it was, yeah.
please show us the Father. We want to see the Father. And Jesus looked at him and said, don't you already know that if you've seen me, you've seen the Father? There it is right there. Him telling you he's God. He's saying, if you have seen me, you have seen the Father. I mean, again, people not understanding the Trinity of Trinities is that the Holy Spirit could only come when what happened? After Jesus was gone, then the Holy Spirit came, right? So, there's also a guy online who I would tell a lot of people go take a look at. His name's Sam Shamoun, and he is a through and through Jesus. He knows he knows Hebrew, he knows Aramaic, he knows English, and he knows Arabic. If I'm saying Arabic, if I'm saying that wrong, I'm sorry. Arabic, yes, yeah. Thank you, sorry. But he knows all these languages. So what he does a lot is he goes and talks with Muslims about how the Quran is not correct and how the Bible is, and there's a lot of heated debates, but all he ever goes back to is quoting scripture and pointing out how the scripture is right. And so just the things that I've learned from him, I would tell everybody, go take a look at what he says and how he shows you how to love and listen to God and listen to the words and more so importantly teach. Now he's a pretty serious teacher. Like he's like, if you ain't paying attention, get your ass out of my class. Like he ain't putting up with it, because this is your life. This is your Lord and Savior you're talking about, and he isn't sorry for any of it. And I tell you what, he's led me to understand a lot of things that were just so complicated to me that before there's no way I could even come clear to defending my faith. Now I'm like, no, I can defend my faith very well. And I think that's where I'm not trying to say being defensive is good, but I'm saying if you're a Christian, I think one of the things you need to be able to do is not only spread the word, right? Because what's the worst thing in the world is if I truly loved you, which I do love you, brother, by the way.
Love you too, man. If
I did love you and I didn't tell you about it, how terrible would that be of me condemning you, damning you to hell for the rest of your life because I never told you about Jesus Christ? That's like the most terrible thing you could do to somebody. So that's why I always say you spread the good word, but I also say you have to know kind of who you're talking to and where did they come from. Like my background, I wouldn't want somebody pushing heavily, starting off with the fire and brimstone, because that would just push me away. Mm-hmm. But starting off a different path, so that's where I think, like, I hope this message, if it just reaches one person to take a look, it's the most important thing you'll ever do in your life. Definitely take some time, get with somebody to teach you if you need, but find Jesus Christ. He's there. He's waiting for you. It's a free gift, and all you have to do is accept it. And it's total love. Matt, you can take the body, but you can't take the soul. Mm-hmm. My soul is for Jesus Christ, and I used to have, like, I don't know, I don't want to call it fear, but kind of fear of death. It's completely gone. I'm not afraid of dying whatsoever. In fact, when the time comes, I welcome that, because I'm ready. I'm ready to sit with God. I mean, obviously I'm not going to sit with God, but you know what I mean? Hopefully I've been a good enough person to be able to make it through the pearly gates, so to speak. But I've got a lot of repenting and a lot of what I feel a lot of damage I did in my first 39 years with telling people there is no God, and I feel like I've got a lot to make up. So I just hope and pray, one thing, that I get time to do that and to make amends for my 39 years of not believing or worshiping an idol, which is something I did. And, a lot of, frankly. And so if I can just reach one person, man, I just, it's, and I've tried talking to people. You can tell some people get uncomfortable talking about, God. And I think part of it, part of the I don't want to say arrogance, but part of the problem is truly Satan. It's a huge part of it. And pride. Pride in men that's basically what Satan is.
What do you think about responsibility?
As far as
if you're talking to somebody about God, mm-hmm. Let's say this person's a person that goes to church, because I used to be this way, and there's sometimes I'm just like, I catch myself in it, and I'm talking about God. It's like, oh, if I'm preaching to people, if I'm talking to somebody, if I'm evangelizing to somebody, and I'm not living this, but yet I'm telling other people, I'm not fully taking on the responsibility from me to God to talk to them about it.
So if you're not practicing what you preach.
If I'm not practicing what I preach.
Yeah.
And I've had that issue for myself sometimes, because I made a comment to the guy who, I don't know if he's atheist or agnostic, but I know he doesn't believe in God. And he always makes comments about stuff, about it, which I still love him, and every time he says something, it used to make me angry, but now it's just like I just got to keep loving this dude because I know that there's deep down there's something.
Yeah.
Deep down there's still an ember that is slightly burning.
It's there.
But I've just got to find it somehow.
It's there.
And it's not just my responsibility only, but I could be one of those pieces to many of the puzzles that he needs to go through to figure 100%. It out, to find it.
Yeah.
But just to always have that response. And I made a comment one time to him. I said, you do know that you are going to have to face God one day after you die and give accounts for everything. And it's going to be hard. When you sit there and you realize I was wrong.
Yeah.
Because like that you're saying at this point, and that's not just this person, it's anybody, that you are bigger than God.
Yeah.
There's no way.
Yeah.
And how was all this put together? Scientists have talked about how, and you could even use science to prove God's existence, but scientists have said the infinitesimal amount of planets out there, and from what we've noticed is we are the only one that has this type of evidential life.
Yep.
And you think that's by accident?
Yeah.
You think that we're just some like how did we come from? How did we come from in our solar system when they've collided in the Big Bang Theory to go through all of the things of evolution?
Yeah.
And then to get to where we're at today, where I'm on my phone watching TikToks. It's like, how does that come on?
I
don't believe that.
I got to throw this at you because I can't remember.
It'd take more faith to believe that.
It takes more faith. Yes, 100%. That knows. That's what you said. Like that ember is there, and that ember is planted there, and I think is always there, and it's there for you to receive, and it's free. But to your point there, I can't remember what the guy's name. I watch him all the time on TikTok. He's an older gentleman now, but he's a scientist, but he's also a Christian. And
I know who you're talking.
And he's such a smart guy. He's talking about all this, but he says something that blew my mind. He said. He started talking to some scientists out of like Berkeley or something like that, and he was just asking simple questions like, "Well, why do these moons rotate backwards if your Big Bang Theory shows that they should all be rotating the same way?" And they're like, "I don't know." And at the end of it, it's so funny because he's like, "So you're telling me you believe in dirt and I believe in God? So basically, you're saying in the beginning there was dirt, and I'm saying in the beginning there was God." And the way he just goes about it, I can't think of the gentleman's name, but dude, he's such a smart dude. He's got an answer for everything.
He uses the Bible to talk about it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find his name right now, but
because he gets the most
Dr.
famous
Hovind?
question: how many angels can dance on the tip of a pencil? And his way of answering is fantastic.
Is it that dude?
Yep, that's him.
That's him.
What's his name?
I don't remember. It says Dr. Hovind debates 3 evolutionist professors.
Yep.
But I've watched his videos, but I'm trying to find his actual name. I've always forgotten his name.
Yeah, he's the one who was talking about Noah's
forgotten.
Ark, and he's a really good teacher because
He is smart.
He is extremely busy. He's scientific, but at the same time, he's Christian and knows the Bible extremely well. So, yeah, man, he's amazing. But I'll tell you what, the other one, Sam Shamoon, somebody you're going to have to check out too, because I'll tell you what, when
Kent Hovind.
Ken Hovind?
Kent Hovind.
Kent Hovind. Okay. But yeah,
he's terrific.
He is. I'll tell you what, when you go watch Sam Shamoon, again, I'm telling you, Matt, go check him out sometime because the thing he does, he converts a lot of people to Christianity. He and another guy is called the Christian Prince. These two guys do a lot of good evangelical work, but just listening to their knowledge, especially Sam's knowledge, because when you try and throw things at him, I mean, you can't change languages on him because he knows your language. He knows the original Hebrew. He knows the original Aramaic, I believe, and he knows the Arabic as well. So if you try to go to Quran and hide behind a language, he exposes everything. And he's like, no, then where did this come from? So you mean this is? I mean, just what he does, it's flabbergasting. It's amazing.
Even with today's society and culture, media, politics, they have gotten away from God. They have stepped away from it, and with doing that, we get the downfall of a civilization.
Yep.
And the downfall, and Jordan Peterson talks about this extensively, is the transgenderism stuff that's going on.
100%.
And the promotion of all of the transgenderism and all of the LGBTQ plus community stuff.
Yep.
Now, I do understand. There are gay people, there are lesbians, and there are transsexuals, which there's the difference. We had this discussion while we're in our little break.
Yep.
There's the differences between transsexuals and transgenderisms. And that's a scientific, actual medical difference. And the transsexuals are somebody who understands and says, yes, there is male and female. I just was born male and I'd rather be female.
Yep.
That's the transsexual. The transgenderism they throw the baby out with the bathwater and
Yep.
say there's nothing, we're all just made up, you're just
Yeah.
it's like, well, no, there's two differences. There's you either have a penis or you have a vagina.
Yeah.
Now there are medical conditions out there where somebody could have both. That
It's
is
the exception, not the rule.
extremely-
It's the exception,
It's
not the
extremely rare that you'll ever find that, or people
Yep.
with certain chromosomes on certain levels of
Yep.
or the XY chromosome or the XX or XX chromosome and XY.
Yep.
I just sounded like I had a stroke for a second.
No, you're good. You're good. I knew what you
Apologize.
was. No, I knew what you was going through.
Cool.
You want to say, was that Jack's Link too hot for you?
Yeah, we had some beef jerky
Yeah.
while we were on our
It was
break.
good. It was good.
actually really good. But there's the differences in between all of that, and that community is throwing everything out. I have friends in that community, and I've had great conversations with them, and even the people that I've had the conversations with, they're like, yeah, no, there is a difference happening right now. There is something else going on
Yep.
with this transgenderism theory. And I'll listen to podcasts every once in a while about it, and it is really interesting that it is being promoted so much heavily,
Yeah.
and not even just on TV and on your phone,
Yep.
but even in schools.
Yeah, which is a weird place
It's
for it to be.
really
It's like,
weird to do it that way.
Yeah, and I mean, I can just tell you from when I was growing up in the '90s, right? So when I was growing up, man, like downtown here in Indianapolis, they would have, I believe it was on Friday nights, the Rocky Horror Picture Shows, and all the dudes would come dressed up as women down to go see the Rocky Horror Picture Show movie. It was right or wrong is irrelevant. The fact is, everybody knew that was their thing on the Friday night, and you keep your kids away from there. It's not that anybody was saying there was bad people. It's just like something you don't expose kids to because in that time it wasn't considered normal. So to me, what God is it's just what you said. It's like it's being pushed as a heavy agenda. It's a small proportion of society. It's like, look, I personally I don't care if you're gay. If that's how you want to go down your life, and
Well, real quick, let me add to that real fast.
Yeah.
I hate to interrupt.
No, do it.
But it's the same thing because I want to bring the same attention to other things that is on the same traditional scale. You're not taking children to wet T-shirt contests.
exactly 100%.
So that's
Neither or.
the same thing. It's not like, oh, look at them, who they are. No, it's an inappropriate thing.
Yes.
It's inappropriate to take a child to a wet T-shirt contest, right or wrong, whether it's looks amazing or not.
Yeah.
You don't take children there. So I wanted to bring that.
Yeah,
that
and
up.
either way, it's not secluding anybody. It's like, what do you expose children to? And frankly, at such a young an age, and even when they get into their teens, you're confused. I mean, I don't know about you, but I was confused as a teen. I was trying to figure myself out and becoming a young man, etc. And you exposing, like you said, children to either which way. Here's the wet T-shirt, or here's this over here. It's not something they should be seen at such a young age. So I believe it's just inappropriate in either way, shape, or form at such a young age. Now, at some point, you have to start teaching them, hey, this is sex, this is how this works, and here are these different things here. But to be able to just come up with 1,800 different genders out of nowhere, like I'm a functioning penguin, or whatever you want to call yourself tomorrow, I don't believe that works like that, because whatever you want to call yourself right now, 200 years from now, when they dig up your bones, they're going to look at you and they're going to say, yeah, this was a male or female. That's a simple fact. And it's the same with any animal that you go dig up a tiger 200 years from now. It was going to be a male or female tiger, and here's about the size, and et cetera, and et cetera. And that's fucking normal. There's nothing abnormal about that. And, that's been going on since the starting of life. I mean, you can typically tell. Now, there is some creatures out there that are asexual. They can reproduce without the need for any interaction with the other, say the other gender, if you will. But again, that's more the exception than the rule. And what's weird if you think about it is we haven't had this problem with this specific, and I call it a problem because I think it is a problem, confusing people. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying a gay person is a bad person. I'm not saying a transgender person is necessarily a bad person. But what I'm saying is this just started happening over the last 20 years. And up until, the last 20 years, it was pretty simple. There was male and there's female. And then there's people who maybe wanted to become the other sex or gay or whatever. And, you had to work with those people. Now, were they treated poorly? Yeah, I would say probably a lot of them were treated very badly because it was not the normal in society. So by all means, do I believe, from what I've read and what I understand from the teachings of Jesus Christ is, once again, you don't treat those people like trash. And I think that was something that was happening in the past, is this person's trash. Well, they
took the hellfire and brimstone approach.
The hellfire and brimstone approach, which is instead of showing love and compassion and mercy, and instead, you're hellfire and brimstone and tell them they're trashy people and this and that. And so I can understand that portion of it, but I can also say is that that's not the will of God. That's not the way that people that's normal for society. And I'm not saying, hey, if you're gay, you're a bad person. That's not what I'm saying at all. But in order to keep society going, the realization is you have to reproduce. And so, and just now throwing it out on the table fully, is that if you even want a gay society, you have to have kids. So you wouldn't even have gay society if there wasn't straight people having kids in the first place. It doesn't mean it's wrong, it's right or wrong to be gay is irrelevant at this point. I'm talking about us as a species. You can't survive if everybody turned gay. I mean, we would go, this planet would go dead in less than 100 years, right?
You brought up a good point earlier, and I think it's a good time to discuss it, about confusing children. And you're already confused enough. I know for myself, yes, I was very confused because I was a loser basically in school. But
Me too.
It was, and I'm proud of it. Like,
Yeah.
I'm proud that I got bullied because it turned me to who I am today. My dad noticed we were getting bullied, so he put us in boxing lessons classes and self-defense classes, and now that's turned into other things as well.
Sure.
And I stood up for myself, and now it really doesn't happen. Now people make comments all the time.
Dude, you're about the size of a fucking Mack truck.
No, I appreciate no, it's
Damn. Make me feel a little scrawny over here.
but that's a cause of this
Yes.
is from when I was bullied, and
Cause
I'm
and
like,
effect.
it'll never happen again.
Yep.
But do I get bullied now? Of course I do. Like, it happens all the time. I was just at a Post Malone concert, and as I was walking, I just hear people just yelling out "steroid freak," but it's funny because it's like I take it as a joke because it's like, oh yeah, I do steroids, but it's all prescribed by a doctor, and if you are going to do steroids, please consult a doctor, like not just your family physician, a urologist, somebody who studies in that specific field. That's my soapbox for that. But confusing children, we just had a call the other night. We get there for a mental emotional. Notes read, 15-year-old having a mental breakdown, can't be controlled by the mother. Or I'm sorry, 15-year-old son having mental breakdown, cannot be controlled by the mother. All right. Mom tried to calm him down. So we're on our way. We're kind of sitting there thinking, we're going through our Rolodex of how have I handled the situation before? Did it work out good? Was it a bad situation? Was it a good outcome or a bad outcome?
Yeah.
Did I say things improperly? Was I a little bit too strong? Was I a little bit too soft? So I'm getting what I'm wanting to say down. We show up on scene and we met with the cops, talked with them. They said, hey, there's a crisis counselor already inside that the mom called. She showed up. The medic goes in, and I'm like, all right, I'm just going to kind of take a peek, see how the situation's going, and see if I can be of any help. I open the door up, and I look at the patient, the 15-year-old son. That's a girl.
So wait, it was really biologically a girl?
It was biologically a girl.
Okay.
That was sitting there. She was obviously looking at the state of her. She was in emotional distress.
Sure.
She was having a panic attack or whatever situation was going on. She was actually having that issue.
Yeah.
But she had the blue hair. Not saying people with blue hair have mental breakdowns.
Right.
But she had the blue hair. She had the piercings all over her. And was a woman or it was a girl. But in today's culture, she has been so inundated in this transgenderism that she has changed. She has decided that she is a boy, and maybe her mom's going along with it or not. That is very unhealthy.
Yeah.
Now, if you're 18 years old and you're like, I want to be a girl, go do whatever you want.
That's
don't even care.
Yeah, it's your
But
decision.
do what you want.
But don't try and take
But don't
kids
do
with
it
you.
to a child.
Yeah, don't try and take the kids with you. And that's a lot. What you just mentioned is like a lot of my problem where the adults today are trying to tell kids, look, I've got a 4.5-year-old son. My son, and one of my problems, by the way, is, Lord, please help me, is I swear a lot still to this day. So
Yeah, you do.
Pardon me. Yeah, I do. I cuss a lot. You know what? And that's one of my sins. I used to be a lot worse, by the way.
Really?
Oh.
I know a guy that says the F. He says fucking every sentence he says. It's kind of a joke because we all know what he's gonna say, and it's surprising when he doesn't.
Yeah.
We're like, dude, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, you feeling
Like,
okay today? But yeah, I used to be way, way worse. So I'm noticing it. I'm trying to be better. But okay, where I was is with my son. He's just about to become 5. My son doesn't even fucking know that Santa Claus isn't real at this point. Okay. So how can I expect my son to understand? I know, but how can I expect my son to understand anything about his sexuality at such a young age? And this goes out to all the parents who are trying to or considering having a sex reassignment or something like that, and how the government or anybody would even allow this. Is that? And I get there are exceptions to the rule. Okay, there are always maybe some form of exception, but the key is you've got these children who are already confused, don't know what it means to be a girl or a little boy at this point, and now you're trying to put them through some form of a major surgery because they're telling you, yeah, I want to be a girl. They don't even know the Easter Bunny isn't fucking real yet. Bro, how could you make such a serious decision? Like you said, if you're 18, you get up to there, and you know what? Then it's time to make the changes by all means, and you go down that path. If that's what you, even though that's not the path for me. Mm-hmm. That's your decision as a man or a woman, as an adult, right? But at such a young age, doing that, and then now think about this: there are cases like this out there where they've done the change. You know, they've cut off and removed things that can't and won't be put back. And then the person gets to, adult age or beyond, and now is really confused, and then goes, "Oh, I should have been what I was," and there's no way back down that path.
I'll do you one better on this one. So even with birth control, I've told this to a few of my friends, like there was a study that just recently had come out earlier this year about birth control. A woman on birth control, it's been around for a while, right?
Yeah.
A lot of women take it.
Yep.
A woman on birth control is attracted to a separate type of man than when she is off birth control.
Sure.
So that hormonal change that happens and the suppression that happens while on that medication versus off that medication. And that's it's a momentary thing.
Yep.
You're telling me the medications that we'll be putting children on aren't affecting them? The hormone, they say it just pauses their hormones, and then if they would like to get back into like letting their body, like this is before when they have their periods or before they start getting more testosterone, they'll put them on suppressants. They're saying that no, we'll just take them off of it. Then the body just naturally will do it. No, it will not. And I'll give you an example on that. My testosterone that I take, that I have to inject in myself, it will never go back to where it was normally because I've been injecting it in my body versus naturally producing it. Now there are medications that you can take that I do take that help natural production. I just had a low testosterone count. I was just luck of the draw. Pull it out. Now, what was the cause of that? My food was not a helpful one.
Yeah.
My career does not help one bit. It actually makes it worse. A lack of sleep doesn't help.
Yeah.
A bunch of things that happen. But the medication that I'm taking that has been studied for dozens of years, I will never have the testosterone level that I was at naturally than what I do with taking that medication as an injection.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's you know who Matt Walsh is? You
Of course I do,
name?
yeah.
So,
I'm subscribed to Daily Wire. Yeah.
So I like the conversations that he's been having.
What is a Woman documentary is insanely good.
It's insanely good. And I'll tell you what, his one where he sits down with this, I don't know, she's a teacher or whatever, and I don't want to get their words mixed up, and I probably will, so don't quote me on this, but he says something along the lines, so, you're using chemicals that are used to chemically castrate, like basically predators and stuff like that. And she's like,
oh, she wasn't a teacher. She was an actual physician.
Okay. And she's like, well, I don't want to talk about this anymore. I'm like, so you're basically admitting that what he's saying is true. And she basically was. And, well, that's not the way we like to explain it. I'm like, well, how the fuck else are you going to explain it? Because that's what you're doing. And again, this goes back to, here's what makes me sick and sad in my stomach. You go back to the early 1900s in this country, okay? So just in 1930 is a great example, even though it was a time of the Great Depression. When you looked at a man walking down the street, dressed up, suit and tie, little kilt hat, everything going on. I mean, a dude's a dude. That's why the Peaky Blinders took off like it did, because that is what a man is supposed to look like right there. I mean, back in the day, that's the definition of a man. And so, you look at a woman. A woman was wearing a sundress, pretty woman, X, Y, and Z. And then it starts to shift, later on down the line, obviously, and where we're at today, things have really shifted. And I'm just like, how do we become so confused to where people get offended if you say one nation under God? And, even saying our Pledge of Allegiance offends people right now. I'm like, people just don't understand our history. They've lost it completely. And you know what? There's a side that's pushing that says, it's okay to say America is garbage, or it's okay to, if you're a little boy, just go ahead and convert to being a little girl, No, that's not okay. You don't just do those things, and you don't just forget. You can't forget about where we came from. We stopped the Nazis. Everybody can say the Russians but we came in and pounded the shit out of them fucking Nazis. And, people want to be like, oh, well, this is such a trash country. Look, we're not without our flaws. We've certainly had our issues in the past, but every country does and will. And you know what? I'm proud of our history. You know what? No, there's been some things that, suck that we have happened and what we did to the Indians. But you know what? Again, sorry, we already talked about this. We conquered the Indians. Hey, what happened with slavery over here? No, it wasn't a good thing. But it's part of our history. And you know what? We have to live and learn from
We were the
that.
first ones to abolish it.
Right. I mean, that's the thing. It's like in today, then everybody's like, oh, white people are this and they're that. I'm sitting here thinking, you know what? No, white people are good too. They're good and bad in everything, guys. You can't just
Every culture is.
every culture. You can't just
There's
tag
still
out
slavery
one.
happening
There's
today.
a lot of
There's
slavery.
more slaves there. There's more slaves today
Uh-huh.
than there ever have been in history.
100%.
But nobody cares.
But nobody cares, and a lot of them are slaves, as we talked about earlier, slaves to the government. Oh, I want to get that check. You know what? Let the government take care of me. Well, I already said it, and I'll say it again. If you want to see how the government will take care of you, look no further than the American Indian, because that's just the truth. And then what happens when you get governments that get powerful? You get dictatorship, communism, eventually at some point disarming the population, then killing the population. I mean,
Have you seen this new documentary that just came out, Sound of Freedom? Have you? Okay. Oh my gosh, dude, this is insane.
gotta see it.
I haven't seen it yet, but I've watched a few interviews. Jim Caviezel was one of the actors in it. He was in the Passion of the Christ. Mel Gibson was a part of this, and this other guy, I can't remember his name, but he was involved in the interview too with Jordan Peterson. It's about child sex trafficking and the insane amount of child pornography that's being distributed every day. I think it's like 10 million pictures a day is
sick,
being
man.
distributed. It's either 1 million or 10 million. I watched the interview. I watched that part of the interview once. So like there's so many numbers in it. I'm sorry. If I got that wrong, I apologize.
There shouldn't be any, but
There should be
I'm with you.
zero pictures. But
Yep.
have you heard about the movie theaters that have been having all of a sudden technical difficulties when this movie only has been playing?
No.
So I'm telling you, look it up on YouTube or TikTok. News will hardly ever talk about this, but TikTok is not lying. It's normal people with cell phones saying, like, there was a lady that came out, one of the managers, I'm sorry, the lights keep flickering. Like, the lights were flipping on and off throughout the entire movie. And they said, we'll stop the movie and we'll give you your money back. And you can come back and watch it. You could watch this or watch something else. And people would refuse to leave. The air conditioning has been shut off only to those specific rooms that are showing that movie. There, all of a sudden, the screen won't be playing because the projector is not working. Only for that movie. It's not just happening here and there. It's happening everywhere with AMC theaters.
Really?
It's insane, dude. I'm telling you, there is so much more and there's so much deeper that is actually happening, like the evil that is happening.
Oh, I believe it.
It is insane. Like watching that is only made, for one, it's made me want to watch it more. And is it a marketing scheme that the people of Sound of Freedom that are doing? My thoughts say maybe 1%, but 99% is the evil that's happening in this world that's trying to get it to stop.
Oh, 100%.
But
Yeah.
you guys, check it out. If you don't believe me, check it out on your own because you will thoroughly be bought into. There's something worse happening.
Yeah, well, there is. The last couple demons are trying to come out, and I can't remember which one it is, but one of them is the demon of no male or female. And I can't remember if it's Asmodeans or whatever, but they explain the last couple demons in the spirit of Lilith that some of these demons that are supposed to be coming out now are actually leading us down the path that we're going, which is quite a scary thing. But you touched on something that I'm just going to go ahead and say. First of all, I'm for capital punishment. If you do something really wrong, and I mean really wrong, and I would include rape of a child in that, murder, certainly there are exceptions to the rule of, like, hey, drunk driving. I'm not saying you should necessarily be shot for that one, but I'm not saying that that's a good thing either. Obviously, there should be some severe penalties if you got drunk and then went out and drove and killed somebody. But if you went out and, like some of these mass shootings and crazy shit that's happening today, bro, I'm telling you right now, I'm all for a capital punishment, so it needs to be put into all 50 states, number one. And when you do some serious shit, like let's say, like you're talking about some nasty stuff with children, like you got caught doing it, without a shadow of a doubt, or you did this school shooting, or went, I think there was some guy in Georgia today went on a rampage, yesterday.
Today? Oh, yesterday?
Yesterday, and it's killed like 4 people, to like 3 guys and a woman or something. Anyways, my point is, we really need to bring back some of the medieval shit that was happening back in the day. And I'll tell you what, when you make an example of like some of these school shooters, instead of just blowing them away, which, by the way, that I don't know, I'm gonna call it that went into this like Christian school and killed like 6 or 7 people and some kids and stuff. You know, they didn't ask questions. They came around that corner. I watched that cop just shabam, shabam. But the other cop came with a pistol and was like, pop, pop, make sure it's dead. I'm like, okay, that's great. But, you know, you got to set an example. And to me, I'm sorry to say this, but when you've seen somebody getting disemboweled or when you've seen somebody on the rack getting tortured, you know, because they did something terrible. Now, give it, albeit back in those days, what's terrible is, I spoke out and said the king was a piece of shit. I'm talking about some serious shit, though. You do something bad, like you make an example. I know this sounds terrible, but the truth is, you put a little bit of fear in somebody's head before they go out and do something totally crazy, and they think, well, this could be me sitting up there. Or look at that's not supposed to be coming out of there. No, it's not. You know, so I know it sounds terrible, but the people now think, well, let me take the easy way out, which I'll just kill myself. So I'm going to go do something terrible, or I'll just kill myself at that point. Or I know I'm going to get, you know, put into a warm, cozy, you know, cell for the rest of my life. And, you know, I get to watch Comcast cable television, maybe get a cell phone and some snacks every now and then. You know what? I'll just live life like that.
That's living off the government, though.
It's the same. Yeah, it
it's
is.
The same thing.
It's
You're
living off
the
of
government.
us.
Yeah.
People who are trying to live a decent life, who've paid their taxes. I'm now having to pay for this mass killer, you know, who did this like Kemper and stuff. I studied a lot of serial killers, by the way.
Ed Kemper?
Yeah, Kemper. Yeah,
like
he
it.
went co-ed killer, man.
I don't like him, but I do.
He's intelligent.
That's what I like. He is insanely smart.
Highly intelligent.
Insanely smart.
But the question is, now I get it for study process and understanding, but should he even been kept around? I mean, honestly, you look at what he did. I mean, he was a nasty fuck. He did a lot of terrible things to women, murdering these women and stuff, cutting them up, cutting their heads up.
College campus.
Look what he did to his mom. He cut his and screwed his own mom's
Yeah.
head. Like, it was nasty. Like, it's like, okay, example time right here. And that's what I'm saying. I know it sounds terrible, but we, at one point, I'm not saying this country, but in the world, it was acceptable that, like, if you stole, you may get your hand chopped off. Well, you know that there's a punishment for doing what you're about to do. So I'm all about that. Now people say, well, that's not really fair giving somebody well, neither is the three people who, what about their families? And they just lost their lives, you know, putting them in a prison for the rest of his life. He gets to live.
Yep. And now he's taken care of.
And then he's taken care of.
The mass shooter that came here in Greenwood. You remember the mass shooting?
Yeah,
the
yes, I do.
Park Mall.
Yep.
So that was on an A shift. That wasn't my shift. But one of the guys that I work with now, he's actually been on the podcast before. His name's Greg. He actually pronounced him dead, the shooter dead.
Yeah.
And then I cracked the joke. He didn't do this, but I cracked the joke. I'm like, oh, a way to tell for a pulse is putting your foot over his neck and making sure. That's a joke. He did not do that. He did it the proper way. You know, felt for it and all that.
Well, I'll tell you,
do you really need to do it that way? No, but
you should have. I mean, the guy just murdered how many people?
But in a public safety aspect, I've got to say that way.
Yeah,
But
I got you.
Matt, Matt Stumpo putting on Matt Stumpo hat. Put it across his. That type of stuff right there. That person should not have been. Yeah. There's no way they should have ever been like, oh, he's dead. Or no, he's barely breathing here. Let's save him real quick. Well, it is our job. That's another thing too, is for people that don't understand, like, why can't the fire department? We would lose our licenses. Like, we would lose our careers. And it's like, it's not saying that our careers are worth more than someone's life. It's just that there is so much that goes into, you want to save people. You want to help people. No matter how right or wrong it is, you swore an oath to protect not to protect, but you swore an oath to help. You swore an oath to try to save them. But I think there should be some types of moments where it's just like, this dude just killed a bunch of people. Can't we just do it ourselves?
That's what
there should. Now, I'm not saying that, so don't say.
No, I know where you're going. That's why I'm about to tell you that you're a better man than I am, because I would just come out bluntly and say, look, I seen old boys shooting up, 6 people in a mall. First of all, I'd pull out my gun and I'd start shooting at them right away.
Matt Stumpo off duty is a little bit different than Matt Stumpo on duty.
I don't think that life is worth saving. Now, when you're doing some stuff like Ted Bundy is another great example. Ted Bundy did some horrifically terrible, nasty shit. So did Sam Little. There's a lot of people don't even know who Sam Little is. If you don't know who Sam Little is, go do your research. You'll be sickened at what this guy. And you know what? He lived in prison and just got to die like an old man. I'm like, no, so when you do some bad stuff, and you, like, as an example, what that guy did at the mall, there should have been no attempt to save that life. Let that life go. It did its damage, unfortunately. It should have, I hate to say it, but that kid should have probably, something went wrong up here, right? Something went wrong up here. I'm not blaming parents, certainly wouldn't do that at all, but, something went wrong up here. Thankfully, there was an armed citizen there who knew how to use his 9mm and just
From Seymour.
just tap,
Good old country boy.
triple tap that dude. I don't know, quad tap. I mean, how many
I'd
times he
love
hit him,
to-
but he hit him a lot.
I would love to have him. I know I don't think he's done any interviews whatsoever.
Oh, that would be a
but
great one.
I would love to try to reach out to him, to have him come on.
What was his
and-
name? You remember?
I cannot remember his
Whoever
name.
you are, thank you. You did a good job.
He's a hero.
You are a hero.
100%. Like 100%. Kids saved lives, countless lives that day.
Oh, he did.
And he not only did he just save countless lives here, he saved lives across the country.
Yeah.
Because of what actions he took. And the courage that it took,
Yeah.
and the quickness of the draw, and then firing. I think he fired 9 shots and 8 hit. Or
I
10.
think he's fired 10 and 8 hit. I thought it was 80%.
The fact that I mean, I've been in that
wrong.
mall. We train in that mall a lot. I've been in that mall a lot off duty. The positioning where he was at, where the shooter was at, and to hit 8 of 10 of your shots under pressure
Yeah.
with civilians running around.
Yeah.
Impressive.
Yeah, impressive.
Very
That
impressive.
dude deserves the key to the city, bro. I mean,
He
that's,
does.
That's all I'm going to say. Like,
He really
salute,
does.
Salute to the heroes like that. And, there have been others who have pulled out guns and try and stop crazies
Mm-hmm.
like that when they try and do that stuff. It's just, people will say the answer for more guns is not gun. But you know what? It's not your right to have a license. It's a privilege. It's your right to carry and bear an arm
Mm-hmm.
in this country. And that's why you're given that right. And nobody ever thought. My dad.
It's a great deterrent, though.
It really is. No,
great deterrent.
it truly is, especially when you're trained.
I've never seen a mass shooting happen at any gun store or any.
Well, they don't do it. They're not stupid.
What's the thing downtown? The big gun thing down.
Oh, the
gun
big convention center?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they're-
whatever. There'll never be a mass shooting there.
Well, they're not. They're these shooters, and people say whatever they want. They're not dumb. They're looking for soft targets, right?
Yes.
So schools are soft targets, and you know what? I'm not going to go down the path of the Ukrainian war. I'm just going to say the fact is, we spent a lot of money helping Ukraine. Look, I don't want to see Russia take over Ukraine. I don't agree with what Russia's doing over there either. But I will say this: this whole country has been through a lot of mass shootings, and you're not taking away our right to bear arms. That's not going to happen because you'll lead the revolution right then. I guarantee it right there. But the other thing is we're giving money out of this country. We're printing it and sending it elsewhere.
Money we don't have.
Money we don't have. Why don't we use some of that money and harden up our own shit and our own infrastructure?
Someone did the math on it. I can't remember who it was, but I don't remember the numbers either because it was about 4 months ago when I heard it. But the money that we have sent to them, just one time of us sending them money,
We could have hardened everything.
we could have, in every single school in the United States, put one police officer at every single school in the United States for
Yeah.
protection.
Yeah. Fully bodied, armored out.
Hey, but our politicians the Democrats on the left that want to keep sending money over to Ukraine and not really put money into protecting children the right way here,
Right.
they're the ones that have armed bodyguards following them around.
Oh, I know.
Don't you worry about it.
Yeah, don't worry. We'll
they
take
don't
your
have guns,
guns.
but their bodyguards do have
Yeah,
guns.
yeah, and that's
don't
such
you worry about
hypocrites.
that.
Such
They're protected.
hypocritical. That's why I say the moment they try and take away, because you know why. It's a funny statement, but you know why you have your Second Amendment, right? In case the First Amendment don't work.
Yes.
And that's facts. When they try and take away your speech, well, now we're going to come at you a little bit. I should be able to say whatever I want. Just like you don't like what I'm saying on the podcast. The truth is, at least I tell you, and there's no hidden agenda here. I'm just going to give you what I feel. I'm not going to say you're wrong or I'm wrong or anybody's wrong, but I don't agree with these certain things over here, and it is your God-given right in this country to own and carry a firearm, and it is a strong deterrent. That's why, in World War II, when Admiral Yamamoto said, or somebody told him, let's consider invading the United States, he's like, fuck no, there would be a rifle behind every blade of grass, and the dude wasn't bullshitting.
Yeah.
Because there are more rifles and guns in this country, and now it's led to problems, but here's something to think about, bake your noodle a little bit. 50 years ago in the 70s and 60s, they'd bring a hunting rifle into school, meaning like they'd have it in their truck and stuff. After school, they're going deer hunting, or maybe they go, rabbit, squirrel, whatever. There was never any problems. What changed in the last 50 years? Culture, mind, media, communications, the ability to get messages out quicker that this is acceptable and this is not. The kind of change of quality of our country, the message that God isn't really needed in this country. All those things have led to where we're at today.
I think also the fear of confrontation.
Yeah.
And here's the reason why I say that is what happens like when I was in school, a lot of this was being pushed when I was in middle school and high school, was if you were involved in a fight, no matter which side you were on, if you were the bully or if you were the victim and you defended yourself, you got suspended.
Yep.
Because there's a no fighting tolerance.
Yep. That's right.
That's a fear of confrontation. Back in the day at Greenwood High School, this was talked about all the time. And Mr. Mullins, the one that talked about it. I believe I take that back. I don't know if Mr. Mullins the one that talked about it or if it was Mr. Whitson that talked about what used to happen. But when there was two students that had an issue or a beef, they'd give them boxing gloves, and underneath the auditorium stage was a boxing ring, and they'd have them duke it out.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, the problem was solved.
Right.
Why not go back to that? Now, I made that comment to a guy at work one time. He goes, I'm not going to let my son fight another kid that some teacher sanctioned at the school. I'm like, okay. So then your kid gets bullied still, and he comes back home. He gets suspended from school, and now he's missing out on his education, the amazing education that we're getting right now.
Yeah.
Private education is a lot better, by the way, or
Well,
go
it's
to
a lot more
Christian
expensive
school.
too.
It's a lot more expensive, but it's the way to go,
Yeah.
or at least homeschooling is the way to go.
But to your point there,
yeah.
there's another underlying issue there is that the way, I mean, I grew up knowing bullies, and like you said, there was the victim and there was the bully, and you know what? I don't agree with bullying by any way, shape, or form, and there are unfortunately kids that kill themselves to that. Like, oh, I've been bullied.
It's absolutely horrible.
It's absolutely horrible. But you know what? And I'm not blaming anybody. Again, it's not a blame, but the parents have a big role to play in this, to teach the kid. Like, I don't have to teach my son as he starts getting older. Hey, there are going to be these things called bullies, and here's what's going to happen, and here's how you need to be able to defend yourself, and you might lose a fight sometimes, and that's just going to happen. Versus not telling him anything or just not being around, and then my kid grabs a gun, goes into school, and goes nuts. I mean, that's the opposite effect. That's the end solution. Is, hey, I've got a young hormonal male, and young hormonal males can be aggressive, who has no teaching, no discipline to him. That's why the Army is generally a good thing for young men, because it teaches them discipline. And now he's been bullied a lot, so now, and he's got a couple teachers he hates while he's in there. So what is he going to do? He's going to think, how can I take care of this problem myself? Well, I don't have enough friends to take care of it. I don't know how to fight. So you know what? This is what I'll grab over here, and I'm going to go into school and go on a rampage. And that, unfortunately, that's what a lot has been happening, and it's such a sad thing, because I think a lot of it can be diverted by I think, and I'm gonna put this on dads a little bit. Say, you talk to your son, talk to your daughter, sit down and understand it, because I think the bullying where kids are shooting each other comes a lot more with the males than it does the females. Now, I could be wrong, but I would say dad plays a big role in making sure their son is competent, strong, becoming of a young man, and to not have those traits or to not have a dad can ultimately lead down. I know if I just had mom, I would be undisciplined. Right? I'd tell her whatever. I'm gonna do whatever. Well, dad will set you straight, because when dad starts stomping around, you're gonna get the ass beat by the belt.
That dad voice.
Yeah.
I've witnessed that. I mean, I've had that dad voice, directed towards me for my dad. But like on scenes and stuff, you can tell the cops that have kids.
Oh yeah.
They get their dad voice in, and then I remember I straightened up one time. I was a fire department. Like,
oh yeah.
One of the cops starts yelling at a kid. I specifically remember the situation. So we were in this trailer, and this kid was saying these horrible things to his mom while we were there, and I'm like, listen, dude, you're gonna have to chill out. Like, and I was at the time, I think I was 24, and I was the ride out officer of the rig, and this kid's saying all these things, and the cop was saying right there, I was like, listen, kid, you cannot say that to your mom. Well, the dad, like, the kid walks away from the cop, and the cop goes, turn around and face me and talk to me like a man. And the kid said something as he's walking away, and he went right over to him, grabbed him by the shoulder, spun him around, and got his dad voice on him.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember standing up like this.
Yeah, like, yes, sir.
Sorry, yes, sir. Like, whatever you need, sir. Like, I remember doing that, and it just like, you could just tell the presence of a father figure was right there, because that kid did not have a father figure. It was just his mom. But what's being promoted by the government right now? Hey, you get some kids, you don't have a daddy, we'll give you some money.
Yeah, separation of the family is what's being promoted.
They're
100%.
promoting that. So whether you think that it's like, whether it's really open or not, like, you just look into it at all and you will find it.
No, it's a fact, and it's
yeah.
very important to have both a mother and a father. I'm not saying that the father is more important than the mother. The mother is more important, but they both bring different things to the table.
Yeah,
mother is typically a lot softer than father.
Statistically,
Yep.
it is better for the child. Now, I do know somebody, and it's very anecdotal, but I do know someone who did not have a father figure for the longest time, and he turned out to be a terrific man, like terrific person, extremely smart, very successful in his life.
Well, there are those
And
cases out there.
Those cases,
it doesn't
though.
always have to be that way.
But statistically speaking,
Yes.
overall,
Yep.
it is best to have a mother and a father figure.
100%.
But here in about 10, 15 years, we're going to have we're gonna have people who are mothers and fathers. I mean, we're having it now that are mothers and fathers that don't even know what gender they are.
Yeah,
And they're going to be raising children, which is what's going on right. It's going on right now, but it's going to get worse on down the road.
I think there's enough push going on that people are really taking this a lot more serious now. I mean, I know my family is, and look, I'm not out here to say somebody is wrong or right, but look, you do you, and we'll do us. And you know what? You want to stay over there, that's fine, but don't go promoting your stuff to my child. You want to have your own child, then go program the children however you want. You program your own child, you stay the fuck away from mine. Mm-hmm. And then again, you know, it's just that simple. Something funny you mentioned about the dad voice is before I came over here, my son went and grabbed a Pop-Tart. And I've been telling him,
those are so good.
They are. It was one of the brown sugar ones too.
Oh my god!
Right. So he grabs his Pop-Tart. And I've been telling him to eat it at the kitchen island, like little top area we got to sit. And so as I'm walking through, he had already had the Pop-Tart opened up. He's sitting in our living room, and he's got the Pop-Tarts all over the floor.
Oh.
I said, John. And immediately when I said his name, you know, and the dad was, John, you know, and he immediately was like, okay, Dad, I get the plate. And then he ran in and grabbed the plate, put his Pop-Tart on the plate, and then went back and said it. Because he knew that that's what he was supposed to do. But he didn't think that I would catch him sitting there eating his Pop-Tart. And while that may seem insignificant, it's actually very, very significant. Because if Mom would have walked through, he wouldn't have cared. He wouldn't have done. She probably wouldn't have said anything, to be honest. But I, on the other hand, I'll say something. And there's immediate action. There's immediate action and reaction. And it wasn't me trying to be an ass. It was me trying to say, I know you're going to leave a mess here. We're going to have ants probably crawling over here in a minute. So go ahead and eat here how you should. And you're trying to instill, hey, when you eat, this is where you eat. When you sleep, this is where you sleep. You know,
it's very important for young boys to figure out the structure and order.
Oh yes,
and a dominance or hierarchy.
Yep.
It's also very important for them to understand physical strength.
Oh yes,
and where they lie in the pecking order for physical strength.
Oh yeah,
a friend of mine sent me a Snapchat of her son wrestling with, I think it was her brother or something. I don't know who it was. And I said, that's awesome that's happening. And we started chatting about it. I said, it's actually really important for him because he's a single child. Very important for him to wrestle around at a young age with other men, with other boys or whatever. And she was like, is it normal? I'm like, it is very normal and extremely good for a child to do that because you start figuring out like your strength, because you can't go wrestling around with a girl because like the strength difference is just
massive.
Now there's anecdotal cases of it, but
yeah, sure.
There's an importance. Because like me growing up with the same size person, like obviously my brother, like we're the exact same size. Now I'm a little bit bigger than he is. That was really helpful for us because I knew where I was at. Like I know how much strength I can use. Now I know when I go to shake someone's hand, I know I squeeze a little bit too hard sometimes. Sorry. Yeah. But I do know where I lie in that pecking order. And on average, it's above average because I grew up doing it with somebody, and it's very important to do that. So, like, I'm sure you wrestle around with your son. Oh, yeah. I'm sure your wife, your fiance, does not wrestle the same way you wrestle with your son.
No, he knows that Mom will just get mad, maybe say a curse word or two. Unfortunately, that's just the reality of the world, right? But he knows, like, I'll give him a swat on the butt. There's no question about it, and he knows that if he crosses a certain line, that's what he's going to get. And a lot of times it's just playing, like you said, playing around. Like before I came over here, we actually took a little nap on the couch. And, we get up, we start playing around. And I like to call him a cheese biscuit. I don't know why. Say, are you a little cheese biscuit? And he'd go, no. I say, you're a little cheese biscuit. And I'll say, do you want me to get you? And he'll go, no. Because he knows when I say I'm going to get him, I'm going to tickle him. And then, I said, do you want me to get you? And he went, yeah. And so I get him, and here's the thing. I hold him tight. So he knows that, there's a level of strength that he just can't comprehend with right now. It's not to be...
Because right now you're the strongest person in the world.
Yeah, to him. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. And I'm just letting him know that, there is some strength there, and this is why you're going to listen to Daddy. And you know what? When I tell him to do something, he listens. Now, every now and then I'll get him running away crying to Mommy. Oh, Mommy, Daddy said this. And she's like, you better go listen to your dad. And then I come... Well, I'm approaching, because he's a little faster than I am. But I'm approaching, and I'm like, go do what I said, and then he'll eventually go do it, which is good. So, but I think that's needed, right? You gotta exert that strength. You gotta exert it, and you don't overuse it. You certainly don't abuse it, but let him know that that here's what's acceptable and here's what's not acceptable, and if it's not acceptable, it's simple. It's black or it's white, right?
That
Yes or no?
that reminded me of, we were doing a mall exercise. It was actually the mall exercise the day before the shooting, I believe.
Oh.
And which, thank God we did the training. That was God's timing right there.
Yeah.
So we had pretend victims, which were real people that they asked people to come out, and they goulash them all up and everything. And so they had this victim come out. They carried him. They drug him to one of the exit doors. And I was a driver. I was driving at the time. So like I was just like, oh, I'll go pick him up and grab him. I said, hey, so like, you can't obviously tell if they're missing a legs or anything. So I'm just like, hey, what are your injuries? And he's like, one person goes, oh, he's unresponsive, or he's unconscious or unresponsive, and he's all shot up or whatever. And he's this tag. And I'm like, all right, cool. So I pick him up. I just pick him right on up, and I just walked with him over, and I sat him back down. And when I picked him up, he goes, "Oh my God!" And then I carried him, sat him down. It's nothing about me. Yeah. It's not like my strength. It was the fact that he's never been picked up like that before,
right?
Just so easily. Mm-hmm. And then he made the comment. He's like, I felt protected. Like I felt like I was good when you're holding me. But that's the majority of men. It's like you don't understand. Like for women, I've had this conversation with women 100%. Before. You do not understand the strength of men. Like whenever they're playing with you and rolling around with you, I did this with my ex-wife. When I'd roll around and like wrestle with her, I'm going easy.
Yeah,
you're like, I'm barely doing anything. But like when you want me to go, I will go, and you will be demolished.
Yeah,
quickly.
100%.
But it's not like, look at me, look at my strength. It's just
it's normal. That's what's in your body.
It's what's in my body. Like we could just do it. That's the reason why putting females and you don't see females jumping over to man sports.
Oh, because they don't make it
at all. They're not going to make it. But you see men jumping into female
because
sports
they're going to make it easy.
Wrong.
And that's the sad thing, man. Because the average little dude, who's just an average dude among males, right? He goes over into the female world, and all of a sudden he's breaking all the records in the world. And there's a reason for it. It's not because men are better than women or women are better than men. It's not the case. Our bodies are more dense. Our bone density is different. Our muscle mass is different. I was explaining this to my fiance yesterday. And I was like, I tried to tell her, I was like, you don't understand. If a man ever really came at you, and was trying to do you harm, I mean, you better be armed or better be able to defend yourself if I'm not there. Because I'll tell you what, if a dude's really coming at you, there's some serious strength there that you know nothing about, that you've never even seen. Like just like you say, I'll wrestle with her sometimes too, and I can just hold her for days. There's nothing she can do. I'm 200 pounds, man. I'm not going to say I'm not ripped. I'm not ripped, but
you got some muscle.
I would call myself a little pudgy, but a little cut. Like I go out and cut firewood and lift firewood. So there's my weights I can lift up. I could easily bench press her, no problem. Her whole body, this wouldn't be nothing. Mm-hmm. And so when I grab her, again, I'm not mad, or like you saying, when a dude turns on his real strength, there's a difference between the adrenaline rush strength and just me, bullshitting and holding her and squeezing her and giving her a Dutch oven for that matter, right? So, but I tried to tell her, I was like, you don't understand. If I turned on real strength, if my adrenaline was there, it's a different. Mm-hmm. This is probably a 3 or 4x difference in what you're seeing now, mm-hmm. just playing, maybe even more than that. I was like, that's why I'm telling you, you need to know how to use a gun, because if I'm ever not here and a dude comes through the door, his adrenaline's going to be pumping, and you need to be shooting. Like, there's no question. You just start shooting, because you're not going to beat him. I don't care if it was an average dude, you're not going to mm-hmm. beat him. And I agree with you 100%. So you take the average dude who, if you put him again amongst males and bring him over to female sports, I'm not saying that males are better than females. They're separated for a reason. There's a reason. I have a little girl. There's a reason for women's rights and for women's sports and all these good things that we have done for women. And I support that 100%. You start to take that away when you let biological males go over to that side and now start bench pressing, lifting weights, playing sports, whatever. It just doesn't work the other way around. Females don't, like you said, they don't go over to the male sports. Why? Why isn't there any pro football player females out there? They would get demolished, like you said. They really would. You got to imagine a 240-pound, 6'4" man running at even the best female sports. Just run right over it. Just read like nothing, like no problem. Mm-hmm. It's because the mass of the body, the bone density, and the structure it's just they're meant for different things. I'll give you an example. I can't create life. I'll never be able to birth a child, and that's the most important thing on this planet, mm-hmm. in my opinion. I'll never have that, but I can certainly protect them, and that's what I was designed for protection and strength for my family and my children. And so that's why I go back to the traditional roles. You accept what they are, and what they are is what they are. That doesn't mean you can't have a strong female. That doesn't mean you can't have a female that isn't good at soccer or whatever, football even for that matter. but amongst other females, not against males, because that's never how it was meant to be set up, man. You and I both know that.
100%.
Yep.
Man, I think that would be a terrific place to put this episode to a close. We
Yeah.
can always do another one.
Yeah.
Because we've been going for 2.5 hours.
Yeah, we're good, man. We're good.
2.5 hours. Man,
It's
is there
10 o'clock.
anything that you want to get off your chest to tell any of the viewers that are still listening? Hopefully you're still listening to this, that you're wanting to push to them.
I mean, the only thing I'd like to push to everybody is, love one another. I would say that. I'd say if you're passionate about something too, I don't care if it's cars. Like I'm passionate about cars or shoes or ice cream. Share it with the world. Share your passions.
Ice cream.
Well, I mean, some people like
I
ice
love
cream,
ice
man.
cream.
I mean, I'm seeing less and less ice cream trucks around these days, bro. I want people to still be bringing that stuff. So, but no, I mean, in all sincerity, like whatever you're passionate about, share it with other people. Don't be afraid to say, hey, I want to design shoes, or hey, I want to design socks. Whatever it is that you love that's in your heart, share it and explain it and teach it to other people. And don't be, I would say, don't be condescending when you're teaching. One of the most important things, again, I said this earlier, I'm going to say it again because I think it's very important. If you're going to teach somebody something, always be approachable, always be warm and kind-hearted, because that's how people feel comfortable approaching you to learn something. If you're arrogant or condescending, yes, you may have a lot of knowledge, but then you make the people feel like crap when they're trying to really just learn a skill or something off you. So I would say that. So teach the world your passion. Make sure you come out with it, whatever it is. Mine's cars. Check out the channel too if you like, on TikTok, Instagram, or YouTube. Maximum Overdrive. You see a bunch of cars. I'm passionate about cars, fishing, and I love my 2A. So I love my guns as well. Maybe I have to do a separate channel on just the guns by
100%
themselves.
you should.
But I would also say this: if you haven't taken the time either, and no pressure from me, but I would say, take some time and be thankful to God for even giving you the breath that you have in your lungs every day, because it's the little things in life that matter, and life can change so quickly and people can be gone in an instant. So don't take those little things for granted. And if you don't believe in God, before you say you don't, because that ember, just like you said earlier, like I said, there's still an ember there. I guarantee there's an ember there. Take your time and either do some research on yourself or have somebody teach you, because there's always good people willing to spread that word, because the word is the truth, and it is the truth. And I can say I'm living proof of having that feeling wash over me on my couch. As cheesy as it was sounding, man, I'll never forget feeling that love. So actually, I told you last thing just mentioned is I'm going to be getting baptized within the next month. So I'm gonna make sure that it's going to be on Sunday, obviously, but. I don't want to be baptized in the church per se, because not that there's anything wrong with that. He's telling me I can be baptized wherever I want, and I feel most at home with God. While I should say the church, that's probably the more correct answer. The truth is, I like the outdoors. I like the feeling of the trees and nature around me. So we're actually going down to the lake. There's an area there to be baptized in the lake, and actually my dad's gonna be baptized at the same time.
That is awesome.
So I'd love for you to come join us. So
you let me know when. I'll make sure I got the time off for it.
Yeah, 100%. So my message is show love to everybody, guys. Treat everybody with kindness and consideration. Don't be the opposite, and show your passion to people. Teach them what you know and teach them what you're passionate about, and then take the time, be thankful to God, and learn more and more about God every day you're on this planet. Because again, you never know when that time to meet God will be, and you're going to have a lot of things you're going to have to talk about, and I think it's the most important thing you can do in your life. So
thank you, John.
Yeah, thanks, man, for having me.
Well, we've reached the end of the episode. I really do appreciate you guys sticking around all the way to the very end. Let me know what you think of it. Did you guys enjoy talking about cars? Did you guys want to see more content on cars, or looking at cars, driving cars, starting them up, revving the engines up? You guys let me know either in the comments below or hit me up on Instagram at More with Stumpo Podcast. Also, this is speaking directed to the men here. Are you missing something in your life? Some camaraderie, brotherhood, a challenge, good guys, being surrounded by them? Do you have friends? I didn't have friends for the longest time, but now I do. So I started a Facebook group called True Gentlemen. There's a certain reason why I started it. Don't need to get into it right now, but this is for men to come together, try to encourage each other to be gentlemen. Now, we do monthly meetups for our coffee meetup. We've been meeting down in Franklin, but each month that might just change. We might meet in Center Grove. We might meet in Greenwood. The location changes, but we also do events throughout the month as well. So a couple months ago, we did a jiu-jitsu meetup, and then here coming up, we have a bourbon swap. So if you're looking for something that kind of gets you away from the everyday life, and you can come and talk about anything you want. It's not a bitching session. What it is where we solve our problems. This is where we get advice from other men who have been through these situations or who have the right mindset on how to fix what we have going on in our lives. If you're really interested in that, again, just follow it on True Gentleman on Facebook, and we'll see where we go from there.